And good morning. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn. He's Griffin. You enjoyed your busy Thursday night. I can't pretend. Yeah, you know what? That's not true. I actually ended up flipping over to the Ravens game at the end, but it certainly wasn't to see what was happening from any of the players. It was because I got a ticket in on the Ravens 1-13 points. And let me tell you, I was sweating. God. A-holes were trying to go down and score again. And then everybody was like, what a BS fumble that was. That was an incomplete pass. No, that was the greatest call in the history of football. Nailed it. 1,000%. Wonderful call. What the hell are you doing trying to score again? What's going on? Throwing bombs. Brett Hundley fligging the ball downfield, trying to, I don't even know who the guy was. Somebody I'd never heard of. He threw like a 40-yard pass with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I'm like, what the hell is happening here? What is going on?
Raleigh Webb, right?
Sure. That, whatever that is.
Raleigh Webb had a big day.
You say so. If you say so. We'll talk a little bit about it. We're going to limit how much we talk about it because that's the danger. This is the problem, all right? I'm going to peel the curtain back. The problem is, in media, we're supposed to play to whatever it is that people want, in radio specifically, because we're slaves to ratings, right? It's ironic. I just had this conversation with my friend Jeff Chadiha, program director over at 105.7 Fan. We are, whatever it means, Chuck will say, we have one job. My one job is to see what those ratings are. So it kind of doesn't matter if you think a show's good, bad, whatever. If the people who have the meters are tuning in and staying tuned, then we win. That's our only job that we have. Our only job is to make these weird numbers and how they're constructed. And there's a lot of inside baseball that goes into that. I've had wonderful conversations. I really like Chuck. I really do. I genuinely like Chuck. I've genuinely enjoyed working over there. But it's also kind of reminded me why I didn't really want to stay in terrestrial radio. And so I kind of like what I'm doing, where I can dip my toes in a little bit and be over there on the weekends hanging out with Rita. But the things that you have to do in order to try to manipulate these books, it's a lot. And so because of that, and because people think that these preseason games matter, you have to do a lot of content related to them. When the responsible thing in media to do would be to come on and say, they don't matter, stop pretending like they do. Nothing that happened last night. I know we're all hot and bothered about Shamar Bridges. I understand. And by the way, that conversation can be warranted unrelated to last night. There can be a warranted conversation about Shamar Bridges because the Ravens are very thin at wide receiver. Somebody's got to be out there. You're not going to go into the year with 4 wide receivers. And I know that you're going to, say, well, Isaiah Likely looks more like a wide receiver than he does like a tight end. That's fine, and that might be certainly something that goes into the math. But also, guys are going to get hurt. James Prochet's hurt right now. So there is room, unrelated to last night, for another wide receiver to make the roster. And Shamar Bridges, as a lot of people pointed out, has also had a very good camp. There might be a path for Shamar Bridges to making the Ravens roster, but it won't be because he made catches last night. It will be for the totality of everything they've seen from him, the way they scouted him, and their belief that he is an NFL caliber player. Raleigh Webb made a damn good catch on that ball that I saw. That's not going to get him on a roster unless they've scouted him a certain way. The fact that he was on the field at that point of the game tells me they don't. But unless they've scouted him in a certain way and they have belief that he's an NFL player and he's done things in practice, things along those lines, it won't be because of what happened in a preseason game. We have created that. We have decided that what happens in preseason games has to matter because we're watching them. And we don't want to feel like we're wasting our time. And no matter how many times I tell you, you're wasting your time, We keep trying to back it up. I, of course, watched the Orioles game last night because that was a real sporting event. Now, it was a bummer because they lost. But I did flip over and had it all the way. 1-13 points. Tried telling you. Don't just bet the Ravens. 1-13 points. Got you plus odds. You're welcome. Also,
had it
they
covered
all
the
the
spread
way.
too, so I mean.
They did,
Yeah.
but that was not at plus odds. That was at minus odds, which is fine. Like, I'll take that money too. When the money's free money, I'm happy to take it. But at plus odds, hello, nurse. And at 1-13 points, you got yourself some plus odds, and that's exactly what you got last night. Winner, winner, chicken dinger. Now, we will at least bring up whatever we saw last night when our buddy Cordell Woodland from 105.7 The Fan joins us here in a little bit. Cordell's also going to be joining us to talk about his new podcast that he is doing with Rita. By the way, little awkward. Rita and I have been doing shows together for years. All of a sudden, I go over there, and everybody else is trying to steal her away. She's doing a show with Jerry on Tuesday night. She's doing a show with Cordell. Little awkward. Not going to lie. Little uncomfortable. I said to her, I'm like, hey, what happens in the divorce, huh? How does this work out? Who gets who here? How does this work? I root for Rita, of course. She's my friend, and I'm happy that she gets more and more opportunities because she deserves every opportunity she gets. So we'll let Cordell come on and plug their new podcast. I believe it's called Winning Drive here in a few minutes. Later on in the show, Jeff Chadiha from NFL Network and NFL.com. He was in Owings Mills recently. Wrote something about Mike Macdonald and what the Ravens' defense might look like. So we will talk to him about that a little bit later on in the program. All coming up, and who knows, stuff and things, maybe a surprise or two. You never know what else might pop up during the course of a Friday edition of the program. Today's show is also brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, which is where you should have been last night with that advice that I gave you to bet the Ravens to win specifically by 1-13 points. On you. You didn't go. You didn't get your bet in. You didn't have that ticket. Real bummer, man. Just a real bummer. Don't know what to say. Couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. I had that ticket. I was a winner last night. What you do with your life, it's your choice. I would not make the same mistake again. Next Sunday night, the Ravens play another preseason game. They've won 21 straight. And they have now covered in 18 of those 21. So maybe you wander over to the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel next Sunday night. You hang out as the Ravens play the Arizona Cardinals for some reason in the preseason. And, of course, start thinking about football season and where you want to be for every Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and Ravens Sunday afternoon in order to get your bets in on their 61 self-service kiosks, the betting pads that are on the way. All available in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. If you want to reserve your spot, maybe hold your fantasy draft there in that first weekend of college football, email events@sportssocialmd.com. So, yes, the sporting event that was real last night was the one that involved the Baltimore Orioles. And it was a weird game because it just sort of felt like they were lifeless for the most part. And that was the thing that we kind of alluded to yesterday. A couple people talked about that. It's such a weird thing. It's hard to explain. You're sitting around the night before, cooped up, waiting to find out if you're going to play a baseball game or not. You don't. But you don't find out till late. They keep you there for a while. Then you got to pack everything up. Late night flight. And you don't really get to, get settled because you're only in the next town for one day before you have to fly again to Tampa. It's just weird circumstances. And I get why none of that should matter once a baseball game begins, but I think we all can think about our own circumstances and times where we've been in sort of weird spots, whether it's traveling, whatever it is. I think we're capable of understanding that we might just be a little bit off. When we're drastically inconvenienced, it just might leave us a little bit off. And I've done things like this over the years due to work, due to whatever it is, where I had to fly in, fly out quickly, go somewhere else. Can't remember what city I'm in. Like, not like that, not like baseball where but like, I think we all know why there is a human element to, hey, this is a little bit strange. And they felt lifeless. They just felt like they weren't really there. All of a sudden, Taron Vavra changes that. Austin Hayes has a little dribbler that Winskowski decides not to throw to first base for some reason. It's very weird. He like triple. I'm like, at first when it comes off the bat, you're like, oh, this could be dangerous. Then Winskowski gets to it, and you're like, oh no, he's got him by a good bit. And then for whatever reason, he doesn't throw the ball. He just like holds it in his hand for a second. You're like, did he have a stroke? Like, what the hell happened here? And then he throws it, and it was late, and the umpire called him out, but it was obvious that he was safe, and so the game's suddenly tied, and you're like, all right, well, I mean, I have no idea how the hell we got here, but here we are. Maybe go win this one too. Now, unfortunately, the Orioles gave up, and I don't have the number right in front of me, but I believe it was 675 doubles last night, and that math just doesn't work. You're not going to win a lot of baseball games giving up that many doubles, and they never kind of came back to life. And it's a reminder they've definitely been a better team at home than they've been on the road in general, even during their kind of hot stretch. It's a bummer because it's a game they could have won. And again, now that we're in this thing, now that this is a playoff race, those are games you can regret and rue when you get to the end of the season. Speaking of which, again, could really go for a rue. Didn't Carson say you could make a rue?
He did,
yeah. What the hell happened to that? I would really like that rue. You could end up, as silly as it is, we can say, hey, it's this weird one-off game. It was bizarre, like road game, no big deal. But it might very well be that we get to the end of the season, and the difference in whether or not they made the playoffs was the fact that they lost by 1 run in Boston last night. And I get it. You can't win every game. I joked about it at the end of the game last night. I was like, well, you can't win them all. Unless you do. But I don't think anybody has. Like, I understand that we have to be reasonable that even with a baseball team that's red hot, you're still going to lose some games in there. But I don't know, in a way it's better if you just go get your, like, you can live with, all right, well, they were due kind of an ass kicking. They were due you really regretted the fact that the Orioles got back. If they had just lost 4-0 last night, like, you say, all right, fine. Go up to Boston, weird one-off game. Fine. These things happen. But the fact that they got back into the game, and these are the 2022 Orioles that we're talking about, the team that, like, in close games, they win them. The team that, like, if you get to the late innings, they're going to win. That was oddly disappointing. Like, they somehow figured out a way in a situation where they shouldn't be able to disappoint you to end up disappointing you last night. So, a bummer. It's about as significant as however they followed up this weekend in Tampa. It also goes back to the bummer of them not playing the night before because they were a hot team, and you just don't like when a team's hot to miss out on a game. It goes back to my other statement, which is that there should be no stadium that doesn't have a roof. That anytime you make fun of a stadium that has a roof, you're an idiot. Every stadium should have a roof so you can play the games.
Even Tropicana, as beautiful.
No, you can still say it's a monstrosity. You can still say roof stadiums are monstrous. You have to figure out a way to build a stadium so it's a lovely stadium, so it has something to offer, but also has the option of making sure you can still play the game. It's insanity. In all sports, we continue to allow weather to manipulate our ability to play or whether people want to choose to come out. Everybody's like, boy, the Ravens' attendance in December starts going down. There's a lot of empty seats. You think? Because it's so cold that people say, I don't want to go because I might die? Really? Well, that is incredible, Sherlock. How did you manage to get to the bottom of that? That there might be fewer people at the games in December than there are in October. Holy hell. It's weird. That year, everybody was like, well, they're protesting them taking a knee in Jacksonville. No, everybody showed up the week after that. The stadium was packed. It got cold outside. And people stopped going because it's cold. It's not hard. You know why Friday and Saturday night attendance is always better than Sunday afternoon attendance? Because the sun goes down, and it's pleasant to be at a baseball game on a Friday or Saturday night. And on Sunday afternoon, the sun is trying to murder you with a knife. Spent a lot of time, a lot of years researching this. I put a lot of effort in. Like, God, I think I finally figured it out.
It is a very coherent argument. It's
Put a roof on the stadium. All of them. Stop it with the natural elements. No. You can go hang out. Whatever you want to do in a park on a Friday afternoon, that's your call. Put roofs on stadiums so you can play the games. So when a team's red hot, they don't have to miss a game and screw up their entire week and then be lethargic the next night in Boston. Do those things. Sorry, I going off on a bit of a. I think I don't know what just happened. We did go off on a bit of a tangent there. And you can say it's old man yells at cloud, but it's just reasonable. We just like to say nonsensical things. Yeah, well, that's not the way baseball used to be. Great! Mickey Mantle used to get Hummers in right field. I know, because it's the greatest tweet I've ever seen in my life. I'm pretty sure we don't do that either, although
you're telling me you don't want to see a baseball game in snow?
No, and I've been to a baseball game in snow. I was at the famous Jay Gibbons game.
Wow.
Yeah, what was opening day? I used to go to opening day every year. It was awful. I think the other thing people don't remember about that day is that the weather changed 6 times during the course of the day. And I believe that when I left my house, it was when it was still nice outside. And so I believe I went in a polo shirt and khakis. I don't think I wore shorts because I don't think it wasn't 70 degrees. But as you know, when you're in the spring and you get that first day where the sun's out, you're like, oh, son of a bitch. It's warmed up 20 degrees from where it was yesterday. I might get froggy and put on some shorts. And I don't think I did that, but I was miserable at that baseball game. Miserable. Put a roof on the stadiums. All of them. I don't know how it would work with Camden Yards. It's probably not something that's possible at this point. It would probably cost $6 billion at this point to come up with the type of roof that would be necessary in order to make it work and not ruin the stadium in the process. When you build a new stadium, make sure you imagine building a stadium in Minnesota and not putting a roof on it. Imagine. I'm sorry. This is about the Orioles. I don't know what happened here. I do this every now and then. Every now and then, I'm reminded it's one of my greatest hits. Put roofs on stadiums. You can pick it up, 3-disc collection available from Time Life for 3 installments of $19.99. And you get all the greatest hits. Put the roofs on the stadiums. Preseason games don't matter. All of them. Get all of the greatest hits. What are my other greatest? The unwritten rules of baseball suck. I'm trying to think of what my other greatest hits are. But you can get all of them. All of them are available to you for 3 low payments of $19.99 to Time Life. And we will get that shipped out to you immediately. Anyway, the Orioles lose last night in Boston, and it is a bummer. But it does not, of course, mean anything more than that. And as I said, it's about as significant as whatever they followed up by doing this weekend in Tampa. Because if they go down and they sweep the Rays, then you know what? They're going to be sitting in a playoff spot again. They'll be in good shape. That's not, a likely thing necessarily to happen, that they would sweep the Rays on the road. But they did just take 3 of 4 from the Rays at home a couple weeks ago. And when they went down to Tampa before the All-Star break, they lost 2 of 3.
They did
correct?
lose 2 of 3. They always, it seems like they always play very poorly.
There is something
Tampa.
about, it's a miserable place to play. It is a wretched, awful, terrible place to play. They have one thing going for them, a roof. That's it. That's literally the only good thing about the stadium.
And the Stingray tank. Pretty cool.
It could be cool, but somehow it just sort of adds into, you don't know if you're playing in a baseball stadium or an aquarium or a weird warehouse. It's just everything about it is... You know that the Lightning used to play there? People don't know that.
Really?
People don't know that. Somebody as young as you. They built a stadium before they had a team, and they needed to do something with it. So they just played hockey games there. In that monstrosity.
Sure, those sight lines were...
I don't even know what it must have been like. They used to call it the Thunderdome. Used to be the name of the stadium, if I remember correctly.
Because the Lightning played in it.
Hang on a second. I'll try to pull up
The
Tampa
Bay Thunderdome?
Tampa Bay Thunderdome.
I guess the St. Petersburg Thunder.
Tampa Bay Lightning Thunderdome. Here's a picture of it. Here's what it looked like. It actually, by the way, it looks packed. It looked like they had like 60,000 people in the old the stadium. My God, look at that thing. Look at that picture. Holy crap! There were a lot of people there watching.
Decent,
right?
yeah.
That looks cool, actually. That actually makes the stadium worthwhile. They played the Final Four there the year that UConn beat Duke. I remember that, too. They played the Final Four in that stadium. But, yes, it is a miserable place for baseball. God, there's so many people there. It looks like a completely different place. It actually looks like it has value, and it's a worthy place to host a sporting event when it was there for hockey. But not for baseball. That is not the case. All right, Orioles go down to Tampa for 3 games again, starting tonight. And the pitching matchup for tonight is Austin Voth and Corey Kluber. The Orioles have not announced the starters. I would assume they just, since they stayed in rotation with Dean Kramer, I would assume that they just stay in rotation and keep pushing. I have not heard anything about Tyler Wells. Like, again, the initial, like, if you had gone back to when he was put on the injured list, it would be approaching the time that he would be ready to come back, but I don't think he's made a rehab start or anything like that. And maybe they don't feel the need for him to because it was such a short injury. But I have no
updates. I don't see any updates.
Yeah, the last thing I saw was from a week ago though. And there were a lot of people that wondered if Tyler Wells would return at all. You know what I mean? Like there were a lot of people that
they just want to shut him down and be safe
because they were already limiting his innings to begin with. They were already trying to limit how many pitches he threw this season. So there were a lot of people that wondered if this was just going to be an opportunity for them to say he wasn't going to come back. But they didn't present it as being a serious injury, and they are in the midst of a playoff race. And if he can pitch, even if you've got to do creative things, like even if you say, hey, he can only pitch for 3 innings each time, and we're kind of going with a weird opener, like he goes through the lineup the first. I don't know. If he's healthy enough to be able to pitch, I would think that you would let him pitch. So I don't know why they wouldn't just announce who the starters will be for the rest of the weekend. It's kind of odd that the Rays do. The Rays are the team that normally wants to throw in an opener in there. But the Rays have announced Kluber tonight, McClanahan tomorrow, and Drew Rasmussen on Sunday for this series. So I don't really know.
What it'll probably be Watkins and Lyles, I think.
Let me do the math. So it was Kramer last night, Voth today, and who pitched on
Watkins was Sunday.
Sunday,
yeah,
and Lyles was
Watkins
Monday. Yeah, then that would be who it would be. 'Cause I don't remember who pitched on Tuesday.
Somebody.
Bradish did pitch on Tuesday. So that's your 5. Yes, correct. That's exactly the way it would go. So, unless
DL.
Correct. That's the only kind of wild card in all of this is, like, have they made a decision about, and we say DL, but somebody else. Because it could also still be Matt Harvey. It could also still be, I guess Bruce Zimmerman, somebody like that. I haven't done the math. I just don't know why they wouldn't announce. That's the only, why wouldn't they just make it official last night that they're staying in rotation? And certainly Lyles isn't somebody who's going to be skipping a start, for Christ's sakes. There's no real reason that I know of to skip a Watkins start either, so it's kind of odd, that's all. Like, I certainly get why once they had the rain out, they had to reconsider when everybody was going to start. But once they decided to start Voth again on Friday, I don't know why they wouldn't have just gone ahead and announced everybody for the rest of the weekend. That's all. I got nothing. I'm saying nothing. I'm just telling you I don't know. I don't get it. It is a little bit weird that they wouldn't just go ahead and announce the starters. All right. Anything else we need to get to? I did also poke in on the Field of Dreams game a little bit. It certainly did not have the oomph of last year.
Last year's was unbelievable.
But there was a lot going on there. Last year it was the first time it happened. Right? So last year, and maybe they did more. I saw one point, because I was flipping over during the commercials in the Orioles game. So at one point I did see them do like a brief thing where Kevin Costner had recorded something for Ray Liotta. I would have thought they would have done more with Ray Liotta because that's something that is different from last year to this year. So maybe they did, and I just missed that because I wasn't watching the totality of the game.
Right.
I was told they did a couple of things for Vin Scully during the course of the broadcast because this is the first big national game after Vin Scully's death. But it's weird because Vin Scully doesn't really have anything to do with Field of Dreams or Iowa or either of these teams. So I feel like maybe that would be more appropriate, at a Dodgers play. I don't know. I don't know how you do that.
Yeah.
And then
I know they were interviewing Votto. I know he was great.
And Votto had written that entire thing about
right.
What Field of Dreams meant to him and his father. And Joey Votto is a 10.5. God, he's such a good follow on Twitter too. And then they did the weird thing with Harry Carey, which I think was certainly well intentioned. They were trying to, hey, it's the Cubs and let's try to do something with this, and it's a cool idea. Let's have Harry Carey at the Field of Dreams, but it definitely was forced and kind of awkward, and I don't know. I mean, it was I almost feel like you would have been better off just replaying Harry Carey, just showing a video of Harry Carey singing this, like the part we're trying to force him in with these graphics to make it look like he's there. Just came off unnecessary.
Yeah.
I think you could have gotten the same value by just deciding, hey, we're going to cut to an old video of Harry Carey, singing the 7th inning stretch and get whatever you were trying to accomplish out of it. I think you could have made that work. So, I don't know. It lost a bit of the sting. But I think the biggest reason it lost a bit of the sting is because it was just a bad baseball game. Like, there was nothing about it to be excited about. Neither of the teams mattered. It's a bummer that it worked out that way for them. Last year, it was the Yankees and the White Sox. It was a big game. And it also happened to be an incredible game, obviously. Yeah. I guess they're going to take next year off because that complex is doing some construction and they're building some youth fields around there. I like the idea of doing more of these things. The Orioles, of course, playing in the Little League thing next week, and I think I like the idea of doing more and more of these types of things. Try to find, I think the actual Sandlot was in Utah. Try to find a way to go do a Sandlot-themed game. Try to find a way. So a lot of people were talking about the idea of doing like a Major League-themed game, something like that.
The Sandlot game would be so sick.
The Sandlot game, again, you can't play on the actual field. You couldn't play a Major League game there. But if you found a park nearby and you did an entire broadcast inviting the kids from the Sandlot to come be a part of it and incorporating it, that would be a really neat thing. Do it on the 4th of July, maybe. Like, have the fireworks and play America the Beautiful and let us all have goosebumps as it occurs. I'm all for baseball doing more of these types of things. Because
you're going to have day games all day and then...
Yeah, one night game. You say everybody else plays during the day and there's one night game on the 4th of July.
That'd be incredible.
And it's the Sandlot game. I mean, my God, you're welcome. I just did all the marketing for you. I'll take my check. I'll put the invoice together whenever I get the chance. If you missed it yesterday, Stan the Fan caught up with Frank Remish, the general manager of the Baltimore Arena, got the picture for what this is going to look like when the arena opens back up next year, what it's going to mean for the city, the community, what kind of sporting events might be possible. You can find it right now, facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, PressBoxOnline.com/video. We come back in. Our buddy Cordell Woodland from 105.7 The Fan is going to join us. That's next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Visit Howard County presents the 2022 Major League Quidditch Championship, a Harry Potter-inspired, real-life, full-contact, mixed-gender, 12-team Quidditch tournament happening at Troy Park in Elkridge, August 20th through the 22nd. For tickets and more information, go to visithowardcounty.com. Maryland, be open for it.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
The 2022 baseball season is in full swing, and the future is brighter than ever for your Baltimore Orioles. I'm Paul Valley.
And I'm Zach Goodman.
And together we bring you the Bat Around every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon with everything you need to know about the Orioles and baseball as a whole. From veterans like Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes, and Ryan Mountcastle,
To young stars like Adley Rutschman, Grayson Rodriguez, and DL Hall.
we've got you covered for every game, every pitch,
And every debut.
You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or you can listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. So join us live on the Bat Around every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
Summer is in full swing, and so is the summer seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash fried pork belly with their popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and try their South Carolina barbecue chicken, or backed by popular demand, the lobster roll with grilled corn. Also try the irresistible crab and lobster fries, or the very berry salad with chicken. And for dessert, the Cracker Jack sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jacks. This menu will be gone. Find out more and get your order in at glorydaysgrill.com. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
These are the final days for you to pick up the very special Salute to Coaches issue of Press Box, with John Harbaugh on the cover and 8 other area high school, college, and pro coaches recognized inside, with amazing stories told by the athletes whose lives they've impacted the most. You can find the Salute to Coaches issue for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read every Press Box print issue at PressBoxOnline.com. And coming soon, our football preview issue, which features Ravens tight end Mark Andrews on the cover and profiles of players from Maryland, Navy, Towson, and Morgan State.
It's statistically proven that the show sounds better if you're not wearing pants. Like me. Right now. You're listening to Glenn Clark Radio.
All right, back in here on GCR. It is a Friday edition of the program. Joining us now from 105.7 The Fan, he is their beat reporter, and he's got a new podcast with my friend, the NFL chick, Sarita Hubbard. It's called Winning Drive. He is Cordell Woodland, and he's with us here on the program. Cordell, what's going on, pal? How are you?
What's up, Glenn?
Everything good? You know, I got to be honest with you. When I found out you guys were doing a podcast, I was like, wow, this is a big turnaround, because that week that Rita was giving you gruff about wearing I don't know if it was Redskins or a Commanders jersey, I thought maybe this would never be possible, that you were that just these two, you could never work things out in order to be able to make this happen.
Yeah, that was a sticky day. You know, we all know I'm from the other side of the Beltway. I moved out to Baltimore to go to Morgan State, the illustrious Morgan State grad now, and so I still have some fan ties to my hometown. Rita knows as well as anybody that you're going to rep your hometown, because she does it to the T, and she does it well. And I'm no different in that. So, you know, we come from opposite ends of the spectrum, but I think there's a respect factor there in both of us just having a passionate love for our teams. And it just so happens she's a fan of the Ravens. I cover the Ravens. I've never hated the Ravens. So it all ends up working out.
All right. So tell me about the podcast. Tell me about when you guys are doing it, how often you guys are doing it, what you guys are looking to do with it, how you're trying to make it different than other podcasts.
Yeah, right now we do it 2 times a week, so they'll be dropping every Wednesday morning and every Friday morning. So our second episode dropped today. And once we get into the regular season, it'll go up to 3 episodes a week, including one immediately right after the game, whether that's on Sunday or one of the weekday primetime games. So definitely excited about that. We'll continue to flood as much Ravens content as possible. I'm out there at the Castle pretty much every day. So I do get a firsthand look at the team that all of Baltimore loves. So, you know, you asked about how we're trying to make it different. I mean, you've worked with Rita. She's an incredibly fun person to work with, and she can definitely lighten the mood, so to speak, really easily. That's one thing that I really impressed.
Well, yeah,
me
she
about
can do
her.
that, and she can also lose her mind, and
Yeah. You know, and that's what we balance each other out at. You know, she can kind of take us off road a little bit, which is good. Sometimes you need to stray away from the script sometimes. But I'm kind of also there to help put us back on the road, find us back on our way home, so to speak, sometimes. So we both have our pros and cons to us, and I think we just are a team that works well with each other. We bounce off of each other pretty well. So I think everybody that loves the Ravens likes to hear a couple of jokes here and there and just wants to have a good time will love listening to our podcast.
All right, so it's called Winning Drive, and it is a podcast all about the Ravens. It's Cordell and Rita, and it's available via Odyssey and wherever you get your podcasts. And they have one up this morning, in fact, after last night's game. Cordell, so maybe one of the things you don't know about me, and part of the reason why I kind of got away from terrestrial radio for a long time is because I can't pretend. I am incapable of pretending like preseason football games matter. I just can't do it. I know too much. I understand it. I can't play along. I can't sit here and try to break things down. But I know that people do, and despite the fact that I just know how this works. So you tell me from last night, give me two things that you think actually are at least worth noticing, paying attention to, that came out of last night's game.
Well, one thing is that Isaiah Likely, who has been a stud all throughout training camp, showed a couple of flashes of what he's capable of last night. He had his first catch was eventful. He had about 5 jukes on that one play. And, Harv said that he wished he had only had the one juke and went for the first down. But, he ended up doing 5 and still got the first down all as well. But I think if you watched Isaiah Likely last night, you had to be impressed. And for someone like me that's been watching him all off season, it was good to see what he's done in practice translate to the games. Same with Shamar Bridges.
Let me just to go back to Likely for a second, because I do want you to get to Bridges. Do you look at him and say he's more of a wide receiver than he is a tight end, Cordell?
Maybe maybe off the strength that he is his pass catching ability is his best trait.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw last night, he's not necessarily the most polished blocker. He had a holding penalty, and he had a couple of instances where he just simply didn't block the guy. Blocking is definitely not his forte. So I'm more inclined to say his skill set is more of a receiver type, but I do think they'll use him as a hybrid type player and line him up at tight end and also flex him out in the slot sometimes. He gives them that versatility with his pass catching ability, his route running, but his size is more of a tight end type of frame. So he's definitely a hybrid type player, no doubt about it. They're going to use him as a tight end, but they'll also use him a lot as a receiver as well, which I think helps because they don't have a lot of receiver depth. Receiver depth.
So let's go there. Cordell Woodland with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. To your point about that, Cordell, obviously you're about to bring up Shamar Bridges. And again, as I say, I'm not the guy that's going to overreact to something that happened in a preseason game. But I said this at the beginning of the show, the simple math is there's room on this roster right now. Like, somebody's got to play there. And to your point, obviously, James Prochet's banged up. Tylan Wallace now is dealing with an injury as well. I guess the first thing is how much has Shamar Bridges done? Because one preseason game alone isn't going to put somebody on a roster, but how much has he done throughout camp to earn a spot? And then how pressing might the need be getting for the Ravens to start considering something elsewhere, to start considering truly how desperate they might be at the wide receiver position?
No doubt about it. Shamar Bridges, I think over the last week and a half to 2 weeks has really started to flash a little bit at practice. And again, he's the jump balls that you saw him win last night are the exact same type of plays that we see from him in practice. And if you're a coach, that's what you want to see. You want to see guys that are able to pop out to you in practice, translate that to the game. That's all you can ask for. And you kind of earlier you brought up what is the purpose of these preseason games. It's for guys like Shamar Bridges to be able to showcase what he's capable of against another team where there's actual live contact going on because they're not hitting in practice.
Mm-hmm.
So the games are the only time that they can really get that kind of feel. So I thought it was good for Shamar Bridges to show that he can do that in the game. He's a body catcher. You got to be wary of receivers that catch with their body because at some point it's going to bounce off their shoulder pads. But at the same time, Devontae Adams is a body catcher, and he's possibly the best receiver in football. So it can work. And to this point, Shamar Bridges has done a good job of catching most of the passes thrown to him. So if he can keep on stacking performances like he did last night, I think he's a guy that could be in the running to make this team. And you talked about it getting Dye at the receiver position. I mean, they've already ran through all the depth that they have. They don't have much behind the starting three guys, Bateman, Duvernay, and Prochet. Prochet's already hurt right now. Wallace is hurt right now. Duvernay is just coming back from a thigh issue. And Bateman is dealing with what John Harbaugh has called a minor nagging issue.
Yeah, but other than that, they're fine. Yeah.
I mean, besides that, they're fine. If you're ready to see guys like Makai Polk and Benjamin Victor and Shamar Bridges out there, yeah, the good thing about Shamar Bridges being able to put a performance like he did have last night on is the fact that I think, based off what the Ravens receiver position is right now, one or two of these undrafted free agent guys on this team could make this team right now simply off of need. They need a depth guy. There's not much left out there in free agency. I know people are looking at Will Fuller, but, I mean, he has a laundry list of injuries himself in his past. So there's no easy solution out there. There's no instant plug-and-play guy, I don't believe, in free agency right now. So I think the Ravens are a little bit in trouble at the receiver position.
I'm with you. And look, the reason why the guys are available is because they aren't great options. But, when you don't have any options, sometimes you have to consider guys who aren't great options, right? Like, it's either your internal not great options or external not great options at some point. It's a rough spot to be in. Cordell, anybody who maybe it's gone the other way, anybody, not just last night, but during the course of camp, who you thought was somebody that had a good shot, or you thought was somebody that, should be on this roster, that after a couple of weeks you've looked at and say, man, I don't know. I don't know if this person is definitely proving themselves to be a part of the plans, or would just say maybe they still are, but admittedly it's been a rough few weeks for them.
Yeah, that's a good question, Glenn. I could say, and again, this is an undrafted free agent, so the expectations aren't crazy high. But Devin Williams out of Oregon, the receiver out of Oregon, he really impressed me during rookie minicamp.
Okay.
And I thought that he would be kind of that guy that Shamar Bridges is turning into. There's always one wide receiver throughout training camp and preseason that fans get attached to that they think can have an outside shot to make the team. And Devin Williams was kind of my pick. But he's faded away to me really ever since training camp has started. He's barely been there for practice. And when he is there, he's almost like he's hiding. I don't see him. And last night during the game, I'm looking for him, and I couldn't tell you whether he got in the game or not, to be honest with you, Glenn, because I truly did not notice him out there. So he's a guy that I was kind of high on coming in, that I've kind of simmered my expectations down quite a bit on. And just after last night, this can be kind of an overreaction, but Corey Clement was a guy that I thought was intriguing to me a little bit at the running back position, the running back competition, at least for the first couple of weeks until J.K. Dobbins can show that he's fully healthy, is an open competition right now. And I thought Corey Clement had an outside chance to make an impact on this running back group because I liked what he did in Philadelphia a couple of years ago. I think that John Harbaugh, he's been on record for saying he likes Corey Clement's size and what he brings to this team physically, and I think he has a sneaky speed a little bit. But last night, he didn't really show it to me. I don't think any of the running backs really wowed me. I mean, Mike Davis got the touchdown, which is good, but if you look at all of those guys' contributions last night, I don't think anybody necessarily separated themselves from the pack. Nate McCray, I think, had a 21-yard run, but that was his biggest play, and I'm not discounting it. Even outside of that, I don't think anybody really separated themselves. So Corey Clement is kind of a guy I'm a little down on right now that I was a little higher on, say, a week ago.
It definitely seems to be that if you are getting into the game in the fourth quarter of a preseason game, you are not someone that is very much in the mix at that point. That tends to be the case. All right. So Cordell, I know that the schedule's a little bit different this weekend. Are you going to be doing the show after us on Sunday, or are you busy with camp on Sunday?
I'll actually be out at camp on Sunday. So no show on Sunday. I will be on all next week filling in for Jerry Coleman, who will be out on vacation. So I'll be on Monday through Friday next week, picking it back up. We're shaking it up.
And then, of course, the podcast is Winning Drive. It's Cordell and the NFL chick, Sarita Hubbard, and you can check that out wherever you get your podcasts. And remind me what your handle is on Twitter for people to follow you.
Yeah, at Cordell Woodland. That's on Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, Glenn. I
probably could have figured that out. I probably could have done that math.
I tried. I had something different, but I was like, you know what? I just want to make it as simple as possible.
If it was available, by all means, you take that. Unfortunately,
didn't have to add any numbers or anything.
Yeah, unfortunately, there were a few Glenn Clarks when I tried to sign up for Twitter the first time. Didn't make it an option. Apparently, one, by the way, is like a philosopher, and regularly, like every year or so, one of this guy's quotes will get attributed to me, and I will get like 1,000 retweets about it, and I'll be like, damn, I am a really smart guy.
Right. I was about to say, I mean, it probably kind of makes you seem smarter than you are, so, you'll probably take it.
I will, honest to God, retweet and be like, yeah, I remember when I said that. I really meant to.
Hey, if they going to give you the credit, man.
No doubt, bro. Hey, Cordell, appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking the time. We will talk soon, all right?
Thanks for having me, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Cordell Woodland, 105.7 The Fan. Of course, they're beat reporter and then also part of this new podcast with our friend Rita. And love her, root for her, so I like every project that Rita is involved with. And speaking of which, I know we're getting closer. I think I've teased it before, but we are getting closer to making some more formal announcement about another project that Rita and I are involved in together. That will be a hybrid between Pressbox and 105.7 The Fan, which is very exciting for me. And I think we basically announced it in the past. I think if you remember what we did a year ago, it's not all that dissimilar to that. So I'm pretty excited about that. And other things. There are other announcements. We will be making a lot of football season-related announcements. Some of them are not mine to make. Some of them are other people's to make. Some of them are mine to make. So just stay tuned. We will get you more details as we get inch closer to actual football. We will make some more of those announcements here in the coming days. Today's show is also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Griffin, I know you're dying to say something about what you saw at the football game last night. I will give you this. You know what? It'll be like what we did with Paul Valley once upon a time. You will be our 1 minute man. I will put – you should probably turn your microphone on.
Yeah, that'll help.
I will put 1 minute on the clock. I don't have the – I wish I had the whole sound. See if the 1 minute sounder is still in there. We might have gotten rid of it when Paul left. We had and it counted down to a blow up. Check in Apple Music. Just go through. I feel like do you have it?
I think
All
we
right,
have it.
Great.
Yeah.
Put the sounder on. You've got 60 seconds to tell me about something that you think mattered as you were there at the game last night. All right? Did you stay for the whole thing?
Yeah, I stayed until the Brett Hundley turnover, and then we left. Yeah, so we stayed for about 58 minutes. Yeah.
My God. All right. Go ahead. Put the clock on.
All right, hold on. I gotta think of something. I gotta make sure.
You were the one that was there.
Yeah, I know. I mean, a lot happened.
Okay, you're gonna have to go work on the fly. This is radio, kid.
Okay.
Welcome.
I'm ready. You ready?
All right. Go. I don't hear the sound of it. You're not supposed to say that either. You are melting down. All right? You need to lock it up.
There we go. All right, so Ravens, they beat the Titans again. I mean, it was no surprise that they were going to win the game. It was also pretty much no surprise. It was never in doubt that they were going to cover either. Tucker hit a couple field goals. That was pretty exhilarating. Anthony Brown, Tyler Huntley, they got the Ravens are set at backup quarterback. I think if something happens with Lamar Jackson, they'll be able to compete again just like they did last year. Shamar Bridges, I think, is definitely the biggest story. He had the big touchdown catch. He had a couple other great catches where he just went up and grabbed the ball. And then on the defense, Steven Means, he was all over the place. I thought he was the biggest surprise to me. I wasn't sure what linebacker was going to kind of step up and play a lot, but Steven Means took a lot of snaps, and then they eventually took him out later in the game. So I think that means that they probably, they want to see more of him and they want to save him a little bit. So Stephen Means definitely stood out. Chuck Wiley, not a great day at all. He looked horrible off the ball. He's one of the new outside linebackers.
I don't know what that
He'll get
is.
cut. He's just
So really nothing then. Look, I like Steve Means.
Pepe Williams, he was playing safety a lot. He was playing he played the entire games and he was playing safety.
He's a rookie. That makes sense. Like somebody's
Yeah,
got
but
to
he
play.
was like Jalen Armour-Davis didn't play at all, which I thought was kind of surprising. I mean, I guess they just really like what they see from him.
Yeah, or I don't know if he's been banged up or something like that, and they've decided to protect him. I just don't know. I don't know off the top of my head because I'm not out there every day, so I don't have that answer. I like Stephen Means. So I'm rooting for Stephen Means.
Yes,
great guy. And by the way, I don't know if you guys caught it. So you might remember that when we had Brandon Copeland on a couple months ago, he was like, dude, I will drive myself back to Baltimore for a tryout. Well, he actually got a tryout this week. And it would make me so incredibly happy if Brandon Copeland ends up on this football team. I don't know that I have the words to describe. Brandon Copeland is one of the best humans I've ever come across. And started as an undrafted free agent, never played with the Ravens, started as an undrafted free agent, as a guy that didn't look like he had a chance to make it in the league, and all of these years later has carved out this great career for himself. To be able to stretch it out further with the Ravens would just be a monumental
I do have
story.
one more thing. The Titans, Treylon Burks, their first-round receiver, that he played like the entire game. Like he was playing deep into the fourth quarter, and he looked awful. He looked terrible. I mean, I don't think the Titans are going to be good. I don't think they will.
Everybody got mad at all the Tennessee people.
The receivers look awful. They don't.
Did
have
Robert
any.
Woods play last night?
He didn't. Robert Woods didn't play, so they do have Robert Woods. But Treylon Burks is going to be their guy, and Robert Jackson might have made the team because he was covering Treylon Burks last night. Robert Jackson looked amazing.
I don't know if there's a spot for him or not.
I know. That's what I mean. Like he might have played his way into the conversation just because Treylon Burks looks so bad.
I don't know.
Off the line.
It's certainly not my problem. Everybody in Tennessee got mad at Rita. Rita, I don't know what it is, but like Rita has this. I call her the queen of Twitter for a reason. For some reason, Rita can say something completely innocuous and like get people to just lose their minds about it. And last night it was something about Ryan Tannehill. And, oh, my God, hang on a second. Rita said something about, I think Tanny's going to be gone next year. And I get it. Like, somebody might say to themselves, really, because you're watching Malik Willis in a preseason game, that's what you think. But I don't think that's at all what Rita was trying to say. I think that we know that the Titans, Ryan Tannehill has been far better in Tennessee than anybody could have ever reasonably imagined him being. But the idea that he's the guy that you're investing your hopes of winning a Super Bowl for the next 10 years on? I mean, at this point, he's got to be on the other side of 30, right? Like, no, maybe he's right at 30. Maybe he's more like 28, 29. But he is, oh my God, he's 34?
Wow, good compliment to him, from you.
Christ, no doubt, man. I just don't feel like he's been in the league that long.
Yeah, no, it does seem.
But, I mean,
5 years.
2012, I mean, part of it is because he was struggling to make it work in Miami, so you forget how long he was struggling to make it work in Miami. So I get Rita's point, which is at some point you've got to decide, like, are you just going to keep throwing it? Like, are we just going to keep throwing it all on this or not? Like, or do you feel like you need to have something more dynamic at the quarterback position? And whether Malik Willis can be that guy or not, I don't know. I don't know if Malik Willis can be that guy. Clearly, most teams in the NFL don't.
I don't think he will be, at least on Tennessee, because they're not gonna model their offense around him like you have to do with a mobile quarterback.
But I don't think Malik Willis. I think comparing Malik Willis to Lamar Jackson is a mistake too. Malik Willis is not that type of player.
But he's not.
He's a more dynamic player, but he's not that type of player. Yeah. I don't think you change your entire offense around for Malik Willis. And I don't know. Again, every team in the NFL had multiple opportunities to draft Malik Willis, and they didn't do it, despite the fact that some people thought he was a first-round caliber talent. So I don't know what Malik Willis will ultimately be, and whether or not the Titans will decide to center around him, or if they'll decide that they want to go back and draft another quarterback in the future. I don't know. There is what is believed to be a far deeper quarterback class this year than there was last year, where last year they ended up being one first-round pick that was a quarterback in Kenny Pickett. There is the belief there could be 4, maybe 5 first-round picks that are quarterbacks this year. Of course, C.J. Stroud and Bryce Williams are very near the top of that list. So I don't know. But I get the point, and it just got all of these people in Tennessee very worked up about it, which is humorous to me. I don't really know what they're doing either. Like, they were the ones that ran A.J. Brown out. I get it. It was going to cost you a lot of money to keep A.J. Brown around. I understand. But you think you're going to be better without him? Like, this is the bizarre part of all of this to me. Hollywood Brown wanted out of Baltimore. Okay, but there were questions about Hollywood Brown. There was a reasonable thing to say, like, maybe if the guy wants this much money, we're not going to pay him that much money because he's not that guy. But A.J. Brown was. He was that guy. I don't get it. I don't know what they're doing there.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. Now, they still have Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but
and so if Derrick Henry can stay healthy and be Derrick Henry, you can win a lot of football games just by having that guy on the field.
But I think as long as you can cover Robert Woods, you can sell out on the run so hard.
I understand the argument for that. I think you're also trying to write off Traylon Burks because you watched one preseason game. And you got to be no offense, you have to be smarter than that. Like, you have to be smarter than to think you can write off a player because you watched
concerns in the draft were that he can't separate. And Robert Jackson was
I understand that. And I'm not telling you that Traylon Burks is going to be a great player. I don't know.
Right.
But I think trying
This is why it's fun. I love overreacting.
God. This is why I can't do this.
If I set the over under at 0.5 Cowboys jerseys last night, what would you take?
It's definitely a weird bid. I mean, obviously the answer is over because
I saw two in my section.
There you go. That is a weird bit, but
Micah Parsons Pro Bowl.
But this is also what happens when people are giving away tickets. Like, this is what happens when you don't have to pay money. There was some, like, Pro Football Talk put a story up where, like, you can get Commanders preseason tickets for as low as $1. Like, dude, look around. Like, that's not a story. There are plenty of things we can make fun of the Commanders about. I assure you, there is a never-ending list of things that we can make fun of when it comes to the Commanders. That list does not end ever. But it ain't the fact that nobody wants to go to the preseason games because ditto every other team in the league. The Commanders thing is funny because nobody wants to go to any of the real games either. But anybody could have had my God, I could not have had more people ask me if I wanted their preseason tickets. Griffin wanted them. I think our buddy Lil Jordan took some too that I had been offered. I was offered 4 more earlier in the week and 4 more last night. You sure you don't want to take your kids to the Ravens game tonight? At some point, I might. I don't know. And there was a part of me last night that was like, maybe I will. But then I'm like, no, I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that. I can't. And the Orioles were playing. And the Orioles matter. By the way, I don't know how this works out. That there's a stupid preseason game on a Sunday night next week, and the Orioles are playing on Sunday night. How the hell is that a thing?
I didn't even think about that.
How the hell is that a thing?
Crazy how that works out.
Like, how in the hell does that happen? Like, it makes no sense. What are we doing?
Orioles haven't had a Sunday night game in 3 years.
Since the Showalter era. And the first time they get one is the only time I've ever remembered there being a preseason game on a Sunday night. The hell are we doing? So it will be another but you know what? I will say, the nice part about that is it gives me a better way to avoid watching the preseason. There is some part of me.
Well, now I have a huge dilemma.
No, there is no dilemma. Oh,
yeah.
My God, what's wrong with you?
I have to use all the screens.
Once upon a time, I had really thought about putting the effort in to try to go up to Williamsport to see it, but I'm out. Yeah. This is what happens all the time. I'm like, I'm really going to do that. And then I get closer to it. I'm like, God, that requires a lot of effort. I'm too old for that. If 25-year-old Glenn would have put in all of that effort, I would have been there. I did so many insane things. I took a weekend where I woke up on Saturday morning, drove to Morgantown for a Maryland-West Virginia game, then drove to Cincinnati after the game was over for the Ravens-Bengals game on Sunday afternoon, and then drove back from Cincinnati to be on the morning show on Monday morning at 6 a.m. It's insane. I can't believe that was the meticulous. I would go that deep into. I planned a trip around going to the U.S. Open final on Sunday night, and then the first game at the new Jet Stadium was the Ravens-Jets Monday Night Football game in Week 1. I planned a trip around. I'm going to do both of those things, and that blew up in my face because the U.S. Open final got rained out because that was before they put a roof on the stadium.
Full circle.
Yeah, not that I'm not still bitter about that. Like, I used to do these types of crazy things. I would, like, look at a calendar and I'd be like, wow, huh.
And you were getting mad at me when I went to a game in Pittsburgh a couple months ago. When I told
But that was random. If it was an Orioles game, it would have made sense, Griffin.
I wasn't doing anything.
Random-ass game. You were like, I'm doing nothing. Now, again, I've combined. If I was doing something, I think if I remember correctly, there was a Maryland-Boston college game and a like UFC fight in New Jersey on the way. I like planned a weekend around. I was gonna go Saturday.
That's a great weekend.
I don't remember how this worked. Maybe it was the fight for some reason on a Friday night. I don't know.
It could be. Yeah.
Somehow. Oh no, it wasn't UFC. It was Strikeforce, and it was when they were doing the heavyweight tournament. It was the Fedor, and it was like they did this heavyweight Grand Prix. And the card was at the Meadowlands Arena that doesn't exist anymore, that they tore down, that the Nets used to play at. I don't remember what the name of that arena was. But they did the big fight there, and somehow there was a Maryland... Like, I literally drove to Boston and then stopped in New Jersey on the way back or something. Like, it was insane, the effort that I put into doing this. But that was the type of thing that I would used to do. But it always had to involve something like of significance, of rooting interest, of coverage interest, of something along those lines. Not a random one-off Pittsburgh, who was it, Washington, something like that?
It was.
Pittsburgh-Washington baseball game. The hell do I care about that for?
It was Dollar Dog Night.
Well, you know what? I do. You know what? If you would have told me that to begin with, I might have felt differently about it. I do love a Dollar Dog Day. Patrick Stevens got me to go out to Ohio 2 summers ago. He called me up. He was like, "Hey man," because Patrick loves bobblehead dolls. He collects bobbleheads. And Patrick was like, "Hey man, Saturday night Reds game, Sunday afternoon Orioles Indians game." And it was like in 19. It was when the Orioles were terrible. I'm like, I think I'm good. And then he was like, well, what if I told you it's also the weekend that the tennis tour is in Cincinnati? I was like, you son of a bitch. So I ended up doing all 3. I went and watched Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer, because Cincinnati gets a great it's the tune-up for the U.S. Open. It's where all the big players play before they play in the U.S. Open. Then I went to a Reds game and got the Scott Schebler bobblehead doll that we made fun of for years.
That's a good one.
I don't know what happened to that one, because we kept it in the studio forever because it was a hilarious bobblehead. And then I got a Jim Thome bobblehead at the Orioles Indians game the next day, because I think that was the summer that Thome went into the Hall of Fame. I think that was the bit. So yeah, I've done some things like this. I used to really plan these things, and a year ago, or whenever, because I think that this was originally planned, but then they canceled it related to the pandemic. So whenever they made it formal that this was going to happen with the Orioles and the Red Sox next Sunday in Williamsport, I was like, oh dude, I'm going. Like, I'll get a credential. I'll do it. Then I start doing the math. I'm like, I'm gonna have to drive back from Williamsport at like 1 a.m. Nah.
Do that.
Nah, I'm good.
Easy.
When I was a kid, I would do that. And if I was getting paid, I would do it. Like, if somebody was paying me money, I had to do a lot of that. When I was working for the Patriot League, doing games on XM, and I would have to do like a Bucknell Colgate game on a Monday night. I always enjoyed my trips to Bucknell. Actually, they got great Bucknell. That community. The nice thing about Central Pennsylvania is that like there's so little going on that they pack these games. I did games at Lehigh. Lehigh's building is too big to really pack. It's a massive
Bucknell
building.
goes all out for wrestling too, I think.
Oh my God, do they go all out for? Lehigh goes all out. They all of those schools go all out for wrestling. But I did so many games at Bucknell, Lehigh, and Lafayette during that stretch that like I got to know the people there. Like I really liked the people there. In fact, like they were great people. Tim Kempton was playing it for Lehigh at that point. Was a really good player. But I did so many of those games, and inevitably it would be like a snowy night at 11 o'clock. I'd be driving back from Central Pennsylvania, but I was getting compensated for it. I was getting money. I would just be doing this for the sake of going, which again would be cool, but like I would need to prepare a little bit better. I'd need to get a hotel in Williamsport. I could go stay with Mark Messina, actually. I should have thought that through now that I think about it. I could have gone
Not too late.
I could have stayed with Mark. Damn it. Oh, I really regret that now, actually, that I think about it. I'm like, I actually know somebody there that I could have worked this out. He lives in Williamsport. No, he lives in Montoursville. Take that back. But I don't think it's far. I think I could have pulled this off. It's a distance. What am I doing? This isn't a show. This is just me rambling. Let's change the subject. That's all it's all I've got for you about the preseason game. We're not going to speak about it anymore. Jeffrey Chadiha is going to join us, though, and we're going to talk to him about the Ravens' defense. That is an actually worthy discussion point that has nothing to do with a preseason game whatsoever. Hour number 1 of today's show is in the books. It was also brought to you by Glory Days Grill. God, what a day we had yesterday.
Yesterday was a very busy
What a day. We were on till like 1 o'clock. It's just more and more happening, and part of it was that our friends from Glory Days Grill stopped by with wonderful food. People seem to enjoy. I posted a picture. Did you see the bit that I did on Facebook, Griffin?
I did not.
I did. You didn't get us a lot of engagement with your Twitter content. I got myself quite a bit of engagement. I posted I did. In fact, in fairness, we hadn't seen the Antonio Brown thing yet. I did the Antonio Brown bit on Facebook where I said, what did I say? Hang on. I said, my biggest regret in my career isn't that I turned down mornings in Phoenix to work for a radio station that was only a few years away from death in Baltimore, or that I wore a Speedo in public, or that I consumed bull testicles. It's that I was willing to share the South Carolina barbecue chicken from Glory Days Grill with my friends today instead of just consuming it all myself. Eating it was like watching the Beatles and Jesus play together at Red Rocks.
That's pretty good.
Got a lot of engagement on that one.
I couldn't believe that Antonio Brown thing was real.
Well, it's not really real. It's shtick. It was a thing that was floating around that was fake on Twitter that he just decided to...
Oh, he reposted it.
Yes, he just decided to take it for himself. It was shtick that he just decided to own. Antonio Brown is very unlikable for a lot of reasons. This is not one of them. This is funny. But he's a horrible person, so I don't, This doesn't make me say, that guy, that kidder, that prankster. But it did get me a little content, and that's what I want. But I mean it. I should have eaten that entire. God, when I opened that thing in South Carolina barbecue, I didn't know what I was looking at.
Do you think North Carolina gets embarrassed?
North Carolina barbecue is pathetic. North Carolina barbecue is disgusting. North Carolina they should be ashamed of their existence. And by the way, North Carolina has other things going for it. And the one redeemable thing about North Carolina barbecue is they did bring us the Hush Puppy, and the Hush Puppy is a delicious little kind of side treat. Don't get me wrong about that. But everything else about North Carolina barbecue is an abomination. Meanwhile, South Carolina barbecue, how in the hell are these two places so close, and yet they are so far apart? One place knows exactly what they're doing. The other place just spits on a plate and says, enjoy. God, South Carolina barbecue chicken is perfect with that gold sauce. Oh, my. Oh, it's so good. So get over to Glory Days Grill and try it before it's gone. Of course, I keep telling you. Mark Tenley messaged me last night, said, hey, I got my gift card from winning Would You Rather Wednesday. What's the name of that thing you keep talking about? It is the opener. The flash fried pork belly and the Korean No. 2 sauce. And I swear by it. There are very few things that I would risk my life for. Maybe let's take a step back on that. That I would risk my reputation within society for, and one of them is the opener at Glory Days Grill. It is that good. Swear to it. GloryDaysGrill.com is the website. I take nothing away from the lobster roll.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. I housed a thing of the grilled corn. I mean,
you did an entire break.
I didn't quite finish the ear in one break, but I could have. It's that good. I mean, grilled corn, of course, in general is perfect. Summer seasonal menu, GloryDaysGrill.com. Jeffrey Chadiha, NFL Network. He's going to join us next. We'll talk about the Ravens defense. Glenn Clark Radio.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Swagger is a daily fantasy sports site created for sports fans who want some skin in the game and a real shot at winning. Forget plus-minus odds, Swagger uses points for a better way to understand probabilities. If you're tired of losing because of one bad pick, with Swagger, you don't need to be perfect to win. You just create a lineup of 4 to 10 simple player props and score points for the ones you get right. So you can be half right and all right with Swagger. Swagger offers the most player props and biggest payouts of any DFS site, as much as 50 times your buy-in. Plus, you can play all the major pro sports, including your favorite local teams. If you're ready to play, visit playwithswagger.com/pressbox to sign up, and Swagger will give you $10 free to try them out. Plus, they'll match your first deposit 100% up to $100. It's free money to play with Swagger. Swagger, daily fantasy for all fankind. Playwithswagger.com/pressbox.
These are the final days for you to pick up the very special Salute to Coaches issue of Press Box, with John Harbaugh on the cover and 8 other area high school, college, and pro coaches recognized inside, with amazing stories told by the athletes whose lives they've impacted the most. You can find the Salute to Coaches issue for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always read every Press Box print issue at PressBoxOnline.com. And coming soon, our football preview issue, which features Ravens tight end Mark Andrews on the cover and profiles of players from Maryland, Navy, Towson, and Morgan State.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
Visit Howard County presents the 2022 Major League Quidditch Championship, a Harry Potter-inspired, real-life, full-contact, mixed-gender, 12-team Quidditch tournament happening at Troy Park in Elkridge, August 20th through the 22nd. For tickets and more information, go to visithowardcounty.com. Maryland, be open for it.
Don't forget that full episodes of the show are available for free on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. But warning, you get what you pay for. You're listening to Glenn Clark Radio.
Back in here on GCR on a Friday edition of the program. I did not get my swag. You know what? Before we end today, we're going to try to put a new swagger lineup in, because I did not. I started making one yesterday, and I forgot to finish it.
This one can't get rained out either tonight.
Well, but it doesn't have to be the Orioles. Remember, we can go all over teams. We can mix and match. Again, I think I have a better feel for the Orioles. But
I know you said Corey Seager.
Oh yeah, what did Corey?
He went 1 for 5, so he did get a hit.
But did he? Total bases. It had to be 2. It had to be 2 hits. So thankfully, I didn't get my lineup in. Oh, I'm so glad I didn't get my lineup in last night, because I would have missed that one. I started making it, and I got a second one on there, but
we were very busy yesterday.
And I appreciate. This is one of the things I like about Swagger. Swagger will sign you out because you're like somebody else could come by and access your money, right? So they've got a kind of a quick trigger. If in activity, they're going to sign you out immediately because they don't want you to leave your account up somewhere and let somebody else come in and access your money. So I appreciate that about Swagger. Thank you to Swagger for that, because that could become a problem. Look, it's not going to happen here because there's like 3 of us that work here. But if you worked in a real office where there's a bunch of people working and you leave it up and somebody walks by, they could have access to your money. So that's a good thing. The Swagger signed me out before I could finish my ticket yesterday. So before we wrap up today, we'll make a Swagger ticket. All right. Had to do this a little bit earlier because of his schedule, as he's been traveling around seeing a bunch of teams during training camp. But opportunity to catch up with our friend Jeff Chadiha from NFL Network and NFL.com right here on GCR. Our next guest spent some time in Owings Mills with the Ravens recently. He's always been a friend of ours from NFL Network, NFL.com. He's Mr. Jeff Chadiha, and he's back with us here on GCR. Jeff, it's Glenn. Always great to catch up, man. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us.
Same here, man. Always happy to do it.
So you were out spending some time focusing on the Ravens' defense. And I feel like this is such an interesting conversation because obviously there's a new coordinator, But I think, and you kind of alluded to it based in the context of last year, but I don't know. I feel like there's like a bigger identity. Crisis is probably an unfair word, but this is the history of this franchise, of course, has been surrounded by great defense. And I don't know, it feels like it hasn't necessarily been the case for a little while. It's been a solid defense. It's been a good defense. Has it been a great defense? And I don't know what to expect from this year's defense.
Yeah, it is interesting because as much as injuries were a big part of what happened last year when they were, had some of the worst numbers they've had in a long time on defense, so too was the fact that the NFL is changing, the personnel is changing. I think so much of their defenses in the past, when they were really dominant, the fronts were so great, from the D-line, the linebacker unit, and now it feels like, and again, this is an NFL trend, so much is being put upon the secondary. And so when I look at this team, I look at what Mike Macdonald, their new coordinator, wants to do with this unit. I think he's being very smart in allowing the talent to dictate what the personality is, what the identity is of this bunch, instead of just coming in and saying, I was with Wink Martindale,
right,
and the same stuff we've been doing. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see what he does because he had great success at Michigan. And I think he's got a lot of talent, especially on that back end, to work with.
I thought that was one of the interesting parts in what you said. It's as you'd imagine, the pass rush is the big question that we've been talking about here in Baltimore. It's been a while since there's been a guy that you can just sort of singularly count on, really since Terrell Suggs, with a couple blips. Judon, had a nice season in there. And there's a lot of questions with Tyus Bowser coming back from injury. When will we see David Ajabo? John Harbaugh's pretty bullish about it, but we don't know that for certain, and he's still a rookie to begin with. Is there enough there? And to your, we always said that Wink Martindale was so good at scheming pressure. What do we know about Mike Macdonald as far as his ability to scheme pressure if it's not going to be from one particular player who's just constantly winning matchups?
Well, I can tell you that when we talked the other day about this, he said when he got to Michigan, he wanted to be more of a pressure-based defense, and he had the luxury of having Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo there to just provide that kind of heat just from the front four, from the edge. And so my guess is he has a lot of creativity. And when you have the kind of safeties that he has, from Kyle Hamilton to Marcus Williams to Tony Jefferson to Chuck Clark, you have some options there that can give you some looks and give you some creativity. And I live in Kansas City, and I see some of the same things happening here where the pass rush, which has been such a constant for years, has been lacking. And now they've invested heavily in their own secondary. So I think a lot of teams want to play the way the Rams do. It helps to have Aaron Donald,
right,
but let's have multiple DBs back there. Let's have a lot of versatility in what we do. The Chargers have done this as well with Derwin James, Asante Samuel, and that crew. And the idea is, if we can't get to the quarterback with a dominant, front four rush or front five rush, whatever you want to call it in Baltimore, let's do it by confusion. Let's do it by creating complexity. And so that, I think, is going to be a big part of what they do, is just really relying on all those DBs to cover and create confusion and to be able to blitz from different angles.
Which, of course, does appear to be their biggest area of strength and depth, and it's been the way they've gone. Jeff Chadiha is with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Jeff, the one thing I keep coming back to, as the Ravens have constantly shown in the Eric DeCosta era, we're going to build from the outside in on defense. And the analytics would suggest, hey, that is the best way to go about building a great defense, is to strengthen your secondary. But, boy, I think back to that game against Kansas City a year ago, and when they needed to make one play in order to try to win the game, it came from Odafe Oweh. And, we reference, obviously, what the Rams do. I feel like there's this sort of weird struggle that I'm having where I understand that, statistically putting together a good defense probably does need to come from strong secondaries. But given the nature of the game and the rules in the league, it still need to be someone big and a difference maker up front that makes the plays in the game are on the line?
It does, but the problem is that those kind of players are becoming a lot like franchise quarterbacks.
It's fair.
They're just harder to find. They're just way harder to find. So if you're not able to get, even if you have one, you probably need to find another person to complement that person, to take some pressure off him, because you can double team that person and take them out of the game. So look, I think when Khalil Mack's a great example. When he went to Chicago, he had a great year, his first year there, had a great defense around him. But over time, that great front became less effective, and that team became less dominant because they just didn't have the other pieces there. Mm-hmm. And so I think to be so heavily reliant on a dominant edge rusher to show up, it's just, one, it's expensive.
Sure.
And when you're talking about having to pay your quarterback, a franchise quarterback, a bunch of money, that's always going to be a part of your thinking. So I understand where the Ravens are coming from, and maybe David Ojabo becomes that guy when he gets healthy who can be that difference maker up front. But until you find him, you kind of have to play these kind of games on your defense to be effective.
I get it. But look, I think we liked a lot of the things that we saw from Odafe Owe a year ago. It maybe wasn't the complete season from start to finish, but I think there are a lot of promising signs that hopefully he can continue to grow in that role as well. Jeff, you know how this works in the NFL. When a player either becomes available or is hypothetically available, every fan base in the league wants that guy. You know how this goes. In particular, Ravens fans wanted Roquan Smith years ago when he was in the draft, and were hoping that he could slip a little bit. And boy, he seems to check every box, and the thought of him lining up next to Patrick Queen, you can't help but salivate. And Ravens fans aren't the only ones that feel that way. A lot of analysts around the league have portrayed the Ravens as being perhaps the best fit for a Roquan Smith. I know that it's still unlikely because it's just very un-Ravens-like to give up significant assets, and for a guy you're going to have to pay a boatload of money at a non-prime position, but damn, I can't help it, Jeff. Like, I can't. I just look at it and say, my God, imagine that defense with that guy in the middle.
Yeah, it'd be a wrecking crew, that's for sure. I mean, he has talent and he fits what they do. But the problem, as you mentioned, is that the last thing you said was a non-prime position, and that is I think the biggest factor affecting what the Bears are trying to do with him.
Yep.
Because as much as he is a player, a big-time player, and he's playing an iconic position in that franchise, if your first-year general manager, Ryan Poles, do you really want to break the bank, your first big move on an off-ball linebacker? And I tell people all the time, go tell me who was playing linebacker for the Rams last year when they won a championship.
That's very fair.
And
very fair.
You'd have a hard time coming up with the names. And so as much as I like Roquan Smith, I feel like his likelihood of winding up in some place like Baltimore is not great, just because of what I just said. I think you're going to pay the quarterback a bunch of money. You're going to have other needs as you go forward. And unfortunately, linebackers, off-ball linebackers, are becoming a lot like running backs. They still have great value in a lot of ways, but they are also quite expendable when it comes to paying that kind of money.
It's the reality. That is the reality. But, man, he is – I don't know. There's just something about him. He's just a machine, man. Like, it's very appealing for that reason. Jeff, and again, big picture, how important is it? Is the Ravens defense less important? And important is maybe the wrong word, but I hope you're a smart guy and I'm an idiot, so you can work through this with me. If the Ravens are able to do what they want to do offensively, and we're all working under the assumption that that's going back to the 2019 scheme and pounding the run and running more and controlling the clock and doing those things, does it alleviate some of that pressure on the Ravens defense if they go back to that? And do you think they can successfully go back to that?
Well, I believe they can, and I do believe that's what they should be doing. And I understand that. Look, I think the last couple of years, the narrative has been, how can you make Lamar Jackson a better passer, a more efficient passer, so you can complement that kind of running game when teams try to take it away. And I think he's grown in that area. He certainly has a ways to go still. But sometimes you can get so consumed with trying to be something that you become so aspirational. You can get away from what really works well. And the vibe I get just watching them from afar and seeing them in practice is that they want to get back to what they were in 2019 when they were effective. And you saw that defense, again, being able to play up to its potential. I think if they're able to – I look at the Eagles as being a great example of what they should be doing. Embrace what you have there. I mean, Jalen Hurts is not going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, but they were able to create an offense around him that was very much like what the Ravens did in 2019, and it got them into the playoffs. I just think, it's not everybody has to be throwing the football 50 times a game to win. And if you have the kind of defense they have and you play special teams the way they play special teams,
right,
that's a great way to play winning football as well.
Can you win a Super Bowl doing it?
I think you can. And I always tell people that when the Ravens were playing the 49ers back in 2012 in the Super Bowl, that if Colin Kaepernick had completed that touchdown pass to Crabtree instead of Jimmy Smith, whatever, defending it or not, whatever he did.
It was a very clean. It was a very clean play, Jeff. I'm not sure what you're alluding to. It was a super clean play, and kudos to the officials for doing the great work that they did. We got to give them a lot of credit for that.
Exactly. They did what guys and stripes should be doing. They called it the way the Ravens fans should wanted it called. But I think that's how close that kind of system and that kind of quarterback were to winning a championship. And if that had happened, we wouldn't be having these conversations about Lamar Jackson or Michael Vick win a championship back when he was playing for the Falcons. It's unfortunate that it hasn't happened yet. I look at the way football has evolved and what's been coming out of college lately. The idea of having somebody who plays that way, it's not unlikely that it's going to happen someday. It's not Lamar Jackson. It's going to be somebody else.
Jeff, it's such a good point. And we just had a conversation about this the other day where I feel like because it hasn't happened, there is this suggestion that it's very far away from happening. And, the Ravens were in the second round against the Bills 2 years ago in the worst win conditions in the history of ever. And if J.K. Dobbins doesn't whiff on a block, Lamar Jackson throws a touchdown to Mark Andrews, and all of a sudden it's a tie game, and who knows what happens from there, right? There is this revisionist thing that because it hasn't happened yet, people can just continuously say, well, there's no way it could happen, when the reality is it's really not that far away. And on a national level, as you allude to in the column, most people don't really know what happened with the Ravens a year ago. Just their record didn't end up being very good. They don't really know that it was because they lost half of the players on their roster.
Yeah, that's right. And you're right. I'm old enough to remember back when Peyton Manning was playing. It took him 8 years to win the championship, and there were people legitimately talking about, can this guy win the championship?
Right. No, Peyton Manning.
And so, Peyton Manning.
Right.
Yeah, Peyton Manning. So it's like we tend to forget those things, or we tend to forget the year that Cam Newton had in Carolina when they had a magical year and ran into a pretty good Denver team in the Super Bowl and lost. I mean, that team was 15-1. It's not easy to win a championship, as you guys, you have two in Baltimore in the last 20 years. But I do think that the way that, as smart as that organization is, as well as they've drafted, as electric as Lamar Jackson can be when he's on his game, and what Mike Macdonald that defense can do, I think that there are great possibilities for this team still.
Jeff, look, I know you're a busy man. I know it's that time of the year where you guys are in different cities every day. Is there something I can plug for you? Somewhere we're going to see you, hear you, anything like that?
Right now I'm going to take a little bit. I'm going to take about 2 or 3 days off, so I'm going to take a break because I've been on the go for the last 2 weeks and about 5 or 6 teams. So I have nothing going on until probably after we get to the first week of preseason. So I'm kind of be laying low for a little bit.
Well, good for you.
Arizona State.
Enjoy that.
Yeah, so I'm going to have some fun.
Very cool, man. Very cool. It'll be hot. That's for sure. It'll be hot out there.
Well, those guys, Ravens are going out there too, right?
That's true. It makes no freaking sense. Why in the world are you playing a preseason? All right, that's a conversation for a different day. At Jeffrey Chadiha, that's JeffRiChadiha on Twitter is how you follow him. Jeff, really appreciate it, man. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
No problem. Thank you.
So, I think he's right about Roquan Smith. I mean, I do. And I said that from the get-go. I get it. I understand why the Ravens are popping up whenever you look on Twitter and, somebody posts a story. Here are the 4 teams that make the most sense for Roquan Smith. I get it. It makes all the sense in the world. I love Roquan Smith as a player. Understand. But for the Ravens at this point, to give up assets and pay a large amount of money for an inside linebacker? No. It would be as good of a player as he is. And as much as the Ravens have tried to do the you zig we zag thing, and it's not just in relation to their offense. They've done it defensively by who do we have on a couple weeks ago that talked about
how kind of wild it is that they're prioritizing safety at a time where the rest of the league is not prioritizing safety. Which they had a great conversation. I can't remember who it was. God, it's going to drive me nuts. A really great conversation about, this zigging where other people zag thing is not unique. They looked at the draft and they said, you guys, we think this is the best center prospect that's been around in a decade, and you guys don't want him? Okay, we'll take him. Because you just don't think that you should draft a center in the first round. Now, I get it. Tyler Linderbaum's hurt, and that complicates things. You're going to let Kyle Hamilton slip just because he's a safety? Okay, we'll take him. Now, will that work? This goes back to what Jeffrey Chadiha was saying. This is the problem when you use such a high pick on a player at a non-prime position. Is at some point, you also have to pay that player an extraordinary amount of money simply based on the fact they were that high of a pick. It's a difficult spot to be in. Roquan Smith is a wrecker. He's a wrecker. But can you as a franchise afford to do that right now? Can you keep saying, we're not going to pay the edge rushers. We're going to use our money in different, we're not going to pay wide receivers. And can you continue to figure out a way to build? It's not Moneyball, right? Because you're still spending the same amount of money. You're just spending it in different ways. Moneyball was spending less money. But it's something like that. It's something like, here's what you guys are doing. We're going to try something else. And it's worked to an extent, but there's got to be a limit to how much of it you can do. You decided to spend big money this offseason, but you spent it on a safety. Okay. I like Marcus Williams. I think he's a good football player. I really do. I like him. Is it going to be the difference in whether or not you can win a Super Bowl? Or will you end up lamenting the fact that you didn't spend that money at another position, on a wide receiver? That you didn't spend that money on an edge rusher? I don't know. But I think there's got to be a breaking point there. There's only so much you can do asset-wise at non-prime positions. And we know part of it is you're about to spend a bunch of money, we think, on the quarterback. And we do have to talk about that, too, that report from Jason Cole last night. But we think that's part of it. And, you did spend money on Ronnie Stanley. That is a prime. Left tackle, of course, is a prime position. You did spend money, and you need that money to work for you at some point. Not a shot at Ronnie Stanley because injuries happen, but in order for this to work, the way that you choose to spend money, when you do spend money on a prime position, you can't have it end up being wasted money. That money that you spend on Ronnie Stanley's got to end up benefiting you by him being on the field and making an impact and being the player that you thought you were spending money on when you decided to give big money to Ronnie Stanley. So I just think that at some point there's got to be a limit to it. And I get it. I love Roquan Smith as a player. I really do. I am enamored with Roquan Smith. I just think he's a monster. But I just don't think they can. I don't think they can. And I think Jeffrey Chadiha and I are feeling kind of the same way. Great player, guy that you would like to have on your football team, but can you do this for him? You can always go back to the the salary cap's not real, and you can say all those things. And then a lot of jokes this week where why are we pretending like Roquan Smith's not just going to be a Ram in a couple of days? That's even though they have Bobby Wagner, you know what I mean? Even with Bobby Wagner there, let's be honest, he's just going to be a Ram because everybody's going to be a Ram because they don't care about their draft picks and the salary cap's not real to them. They're just going to keep acquiring everybody else's good players. And for what it's worth, they won a Super Bowl. So it's the conversation that I've had a couple times this offseason. Maybe what we're learning is the way that the Buccaneers and the Rams have done things the last couple of years is the way that everybody else should be doing things. And instead of valuing your own internal assets, you should just value having good players. Don't know. I can't say it definitively. But I think he's right. I just don't think it's going to happen with Roquan Smith. The rest is to be determined, right? Can Odafe Owe continue to emerge? Could David Ajabo get on the field earlier than we thought he could? John Harbaugh appears to be bullish about that, but it's an easy thing to say when, there's no guarantee. But it's not like John Harbaugh saying he's going to be back by week 6 or I'm going to give you guys $1,000 each. Like, there's no penalty to it. Like, there's nothing having optimism can't be penalized. So we'll see. I hope he's right. But even if he does get on the field sooner than we thought, he's still a rookie. And he's still a rookie coming off a significant injury. So what reasonably could be your expectations immediately? Odafe Oweh had a pretty nice season a year ago, but does anybody think he's a top-flight pass rusher in the NFL? By reasonable standards, Odafe Oweh played well. He made, obviously, the biggest play of the season for the Baltimore Ravens. Odafe Oweh showed signs that he can play in this league. And by a reasonable expectation for a rookie edge rusher, that's a good thing. Again, you hope he grows. You hope Tyus Bowser gets back. Tyus Bowser did talk to the media last night, was not committal about week 1. Also cut his hair, which really threw me off because I spent a lot of time with Tyus Bowser last season. I was like, whoa, hey, hello, what's going on there? It was like when we were at Preakness once, and my wife and I were walking along, and all of a sudden this very large man comes up from behind and gives my wife a hug. And I'm like, what the hell? And it was Torrey Smith. It was right when he had cut his dreads off the first time. And but it took me a minute. I'm like, who is that? Oh. And I love Torrey's a great guy. Of course, I think everybody knows my affinity for Torrey Smith. But in the moment, I was like, what the hell is going on here? My wife was also confused. But he was just a very sweet person, despite the fact that he probably had met my wife all of twice at that point. Torrey Smith is a very sweet man, and so he wanted to come give her a hug. I don't know what we were talking about Tyus Bowser. So Tyus Bowser says, basically nothing. Like, he's asked, you can be back by week 1, and he was like, nah, I'm just going to take it day by day. Which doesn't mean no, but you would think if he was, much of the way that J.K. Dobbins was quite confident, you would think if he was confident about it, he would probably say yes. So that's not promising necessarily in solving this puzzle. There's a lot there. And it's a reasonable question to ask. Is Mike Macdonald going to be able to scheme pressure? Will the Ravens be able to create it without it having to be schemed and leaving cornerbacks one-on-one, even when you feel good about your secondary? And I think the Ravens, if they're all out there week 1, will feel good about their secondary, but it's still asking a lot. Marlon Humphrey had his worst season last year. You hope that he plays better than that. But if you have to do more as far as scheming pressure is concerned, that puts him into tougher situations. We will find out. Obviously can't get our answer today. All right, when we come back in, let's talk about so Jason Cole, longtime NFL writer, friend of mine. He reported something related to Lamar Jackson last night. We will talk about that. I want to make a swagger lineup if we have time. And I saw this thing floating around this morning. Everybody's getting really worked up about an interview that Carson Wentz did. And I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting topic about fair ways to ask questions and the president of the Washington Commanders is very angry about this interview. And I just want to talk about it. I don't care about Carson Wentz. I certainly don't care about the Commanders, but I think it's interesting, and I also think I think there's a lot that's interesting there unrelated to the Washington team. So we'll talk about all those things. All that coming up. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
Swagger is a daily fantasy sports site created for sports fans who want some skin in the game and a real shot at winning. Forget plus-minus odds, Swagger uses points for a better way to understand probabilities. If you're tired of losing because of one bad pick, with Swagger, you don't need to be perfect to win. You just create a lineup of 4 to 10 simple player props and score points for the ones you get right. So you can be half right and all right with Swagger. Swagger offers the most player props and biggest payouts of any DFS site, as much as 50 times your buy-in. Plus, you can play all the major pro sports, including your favorite local teams. If you're ready to play, visit playwithswagger.com/pressbox to sign up, and Swagger will give you $10 free to try them out. Plus, they'll match your first deposit 100% up to $100. It's free money to play with Swagger. Swagger, daily fantasy for all fankind. Playwithswagger.com/pressbox.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
The biggest pro wrestling stars today and all time all have one thing in common. You've heard them on Jobbing Out.
Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks.
Thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.
The great Kurt Angle.
Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah, man. Thanks, man.
The Champ, Drew McIntyre.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Bill Goldberg.
My pleasure.
Charlotte.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mick Foley is with us.
This is the greatest name for a wrestling show I've ever heard.
MJF.
I'm glad you're happy I'm on this show because I'm freaking miserable.
Le
champion.
Chris Jericho.
Le champion.
AJ, Aaron, Brandon, and Glenn are talking pro wrestling every week on Jobbing Out. Find it at PressBoxOnline.com/radio, iTunes, and SoundCloud.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Summer is in full swing, and so is the summer seasonal menu at Glory Days Grill. Start with the opener, flash fried pork belly with their popular Korean No. 2 sauce, and try their South Carolina barbecue chicken, or back by popular demand, the lobster roll with grilled corn. Also try the irresistible crab and lobster fries, or the very berry salad with chicken. And for dessert, the Cracker Jack sundae with a waffle, ice cream, and Cracker Jacks. This menu will be gone. Find out more and get your order in at glorydaysgrill.com. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
To follow the show on Instagram, it's just Glenn Clark Radio. And to follow the show on OnlyFans, wait, I don't think you're supposed to know about that one. Any hoodle. Take it away, boys.
All right, back in here on GCR. Don't forget, this coming Tuesday, the return of Simply the Bets, 11:40 a.m. every Tuesday morning. And then next week will be the return of Weekend at Bookies on Thursday at 11:40 a.m. every Tuesday for Simply the Bets, every other Thursday for Weekend at Bookies. It's all brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Okay, so Jason Cole, longtime NFL writer, Hall of Fame voter, man who's broken quite a few stories during his career. I think his first big one that he was associated with was the Reggie Bush scandal. He broke that story, but he's broken a lot of stories over the years. I had no idea that Jason is now contributing to Outkick, which I will not share any opinions about that, but that's apparently somewhere that he is now involved with to at least some capacity. And Jason wrote something yesterday about Lamar Jackson's situation. And look, Jason is a reporter, like a legit reporter. Wrote a really lengthy John Elway book a couple years ago. I think that was the last time we had him on the show. He used to be on with me once a week. But I think that was the last time we had Jason on the program, was when he wrote this really lengthy John Elway, like this sort of authoritative biography about John Elway. Jason Cole writes at Outkick, the Lamar Jackson contract is about a lot more than money, which is saying something because it's also about a lot of money. According to a source familiar with both Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens' position on the negotiations, Jackson is asking for a contract that is both fully guaranteed and worth more than the $230 million that Cleveland gave the quarterback Deshaun Watson on a 5-year deal this offseason. Quote, why wouldn't he ask for more than Watson, unquote, the source asked rhetorically. For what it's worth, that's what I said. Literally. And it's the same thing I said when everybody said that the Patrick Mahomes deal wouldn't set the market. This idea that a number exists and the next players would say, hey, we get it. That's for them.
You wouldn't do that for us. It's silly. It's nonsensical. It's absurd, frankly. Whatever the circumstances are, and we can do all of the math about the situation in Cleveland. The situation in Cleveland is they had burned a bridge with their quarterback. They were desperate, and there was one quarterback that was available at that point. When Baker Mayfield found out that they were flirting with Deshaun Watson, it was over with Baker Mayfield. So they had no backup plan. They had to go all in. Now, it's shameful that this is the guy they went all in for, and it's a joke, but desperation created the circumstances by which Deshaun Watson was able to get this fully guaranteed $230 million deal. A lot of people expect the NFL's arbiter to make an announcement today to try to prevent Deshaun Watson from starting because I think tonight is when their game is scheduled, and they announced he would start. So there's this sort of like bubbling thing among some people around the NFL that they think that there's some pressure on the NFL's arbiter to make an announcement today to try to put the pressure on Cleveland to not play him. Like, if he's suspended for the season, I would presume that includes the preseason. I guess that Deshaun Watson's camp tried to make a last-ditch effort to negotiate an 8-game suspension and a $5 million fine. And the belief is that the NFL is saying too little, too late. Like, we're not, that maybe if they had made that offer initially, the NFL might have just taken it. I don't know. It's very weird. It's very weird that if they're pushing very hard for a 1-year suspension, then why would they just not? I don't know. It's all very weird to me. It's all very weird, but we'll see. We'll see if that comes together today. Go back to the point. The point being, the idea that once that was out there, that every other quarterback would just look and say, well, that's for Deshaun Watson. That's not for me. I don't get that. Why? How would that make sense? How would that make a lick of sense? You've got all of the leverage. You're the quarterback. If the Ravens don't have Lamar Jackson, they have nothing. They are worthless until they go get their next quarterback. I've never understood, and boy, it's been one of the things, it could be on that greatest hits collection. I've talked about it ad nauseum during the course of the year. This thing where the quarterbacks have all the leverage, but other people are just like, yeah, but they don't need to use it. Why not? Why not? Now, you can, of course, argue that if somebody thinks that they've got a good deal in front of them and it's not fully guaranteed and it's not as much money, but they're happy with it, that it's their right to choose that. That's fine. And if that's what Kyler Murray decided, that's what Kyler Murray decides. But there is no way to argue that someone shouldn't try to get this deal. Because if Cleveland's willing to offer it in their circumstance, think about how many teams won't have quarterbacks after this offseason or going into this offseason. Seattle's going into a season where they're not going to have a quarterback. They're just going to go play football this year without a quarterback. They're trying a weird, wacky bit where they're like, well, what if we didn't have one? Carolina thinks so little of Baker Mayfield, they were pretending like he was competing with Sam Darnold for a job. You know how funny that is? That we just played along with that? Like there was a competition between Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, and I get it. None of us think that highly of Baker Mayfield, but come on. One of them has done something as a quarterback in this league. But they think so little of him. They're like, look, we'll take him, but we think so little of him, we're going to make him compete with Sam Darnold. You think that might be a team that's in the market for a quarterback again? Think the Jets could end up being in the market for a quarterback again pretty soon?
They have Joe Flacco. There you don't.
It's a great point. Says a lot about the situation they have. That legitimately there are people in New York who are like, they should probably just play Flacco. You think it's possible the Giants couldn't be in the market for a quarterback again pretty soon? The Saints, who are a half inch above going into a season without a quarterback. Like, they know the guy they have isn't really a quarterback, but they're like, hey, but he did throw a lot of touchdowns, and you just never know. I get it. It's better than Drew Lock and Geno Smith. I'm not pretending like Jameis Winston has at least done something in the NFL. We just know that there's a lot of the bad that comes with the good. That's the problem. You can't make an argument that Jameis Winston, of course, this will be the year where he ends up becoming a quarterback, and then I'll feel foolish.
I'm going to clip this.
Thank you. Yeah. Houston's gone all in on Davis Mills. So, again, I saw some things from a year ago. Like, I saw a couple of things from. But really? Really? You think the Kirk Cousins experiment couldn't end at some point in Minnesota? Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee? Jared Goff in Detroit? How many teams are comfortable with their long-term health at quarterback around the league? 10, 12, maybe? Kansas City, Buffalo, the Chargers, the Bengals. I guess Dallas is. I mean, I think a lot of us would ask some questions about that, but
Tampa's not.
No, Tampa long-term definitely couldn't be. Green Bay long-term couldn't be. I mean, I think Matt Ryan's going to work in Indianapolis, but that's short-term. My God, I'm naming 5. I mean, Matt Stafford probably has a few more years in him, but long-term would be the wrong way to say it. I just don't think the Rams I think he's probably got at least enough more years in him that they're probably not quickly in the market. But, you know, I'm giving it a 6, but I'm kind of fudging on the 6th. I'm kind of like, yeah, there is a 6th. I mean, Cleveland probably can't do it again next year, but so I guess I'll put them on the list. But, my God, we're putting Deshaun Watson on this list in order to get to 7. I'm probably forgetting something just off the top of my head. Russell Wilson's going to be around for a little while. I would think that they're
maybe
pretty...
Derek Carr,
Yeah, you know, Derek Carr's closer to that.
Herbert, you said
I did. I said the Chargers, yes. I definitely said the Chargers. You know, but yes, that's fair. Derek Carr is closer to this list than the other list at this point. Like, I still not... I don't think he's a... Oh, God. I can't believe I'm going to use this word. I still don't think he's an elite quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence,
I have no idea. Tua is, guess, closer to this list than he is. But, again, they like Tua so much they tried to get a different quarterback last offseason. Mac Jones. Why in the world wouldn't he use his leverage? So I don't have any reason. There's 2 things that I would say about this. I'd be very surprised if this was Eric DeCosta telling him directly. But I don't think that Jason Cole simply made this up either. And I think the part of it is that it's reasonable. Anyone representing Lamar Jackson would say, look, man, you know, the table's been set. Do you want to pull up your chair or not? You know what it costs now. That's what it costs. Now, the flip side is the risk. That if this is what's going on here, is the Ravens are saying we don't want to pay that, there's risk on both sides. There's risk from Lamar Jackson, one, that he's giving up money this year. That if the Ravens offered something else that wasn't that, but was closer to the Kyler Murray deal, he's making less money this year than he has to make. He's leaving money on the table this year, specifically, because he's playing for $23 million. Any contract that you would do would make sure via guarantees that you're getting more than $23 million this year. So he's definitely leaving money on the table. That's the first risk that's involved. The second part of the risk for Lamar Jackson is, of course, the injury side of things. And again, we can keep saying, hey, Dak Prescott is proof that even if you get hurt, you know, you can still get your big money. And that's true. There is whatever percentage chance that the injury is more significant than that. It's a Alex Smith type of injury, but we've seen one of those. We have not seen, I guess Andrew Luck would probably fall into like the career altering, but a lot of people believe that Andrew Luck could have played. Robert Griffin III, his injuries were more career altering. He was never the same player. So there are a couple of examples of career altering injuries that have occurred, but it's a couple. And if you get a guaranteed deal, doesn't matter if your career's altered by it, you still got your money. But there is at least a small percentage of risk for Lamar Jackson.
you would also say there's a small percentage of risk that, Ronnie Stanley doesn't play this year, and, there are other issues. Maybe Tyler Linderbaum's injury is more significant than it's being portrayed, and the offensive line stinks again this year, and the wide receivers stink because, that's reasonable looking at tape, and you just have another bad season. And bad is unfair because for the most part last year he was excellent. But you have another season that's not quite that standard. Now, there's only so many quarterbacks on the market, so if you have even a reasonable season, you should still be able to get a boatload of money. But those are the risks on Lamar Jackson's side. On the Ravens side, there's the risk that you're pissing off your quarterback. And if you're not willing to pay him market value, then he really will do the thing that was rumored earlier in the offseason and say, well, the hell with it. I'm just going to go to free agency. You want to give me 2 franchise tags and have all of that money? It can't be spread out. We can keep saying everything we want about, well, it's not that bad of a deal for the Ravens. It can't be spread out. It's all coming directly as a cap hit. You want to give me 2 franchise tags? And then I can hit the open market? I'm a little pissed off about how you handled this when you knew what the market value for a quarterback was. It doesn't guarantee that's what's occurring, but that's the risk. There is a risk that perhaps you're doing that. Perhaps. The second part of the risk for the Ravens is that if he makes it clear that he's ultimately going to move on, that you didn't trade him when he had his greatest value. And you don't end up winning a Super Bowl in the time frame either. That we get to this point years down the road, and you never won a Super Bowl, and he just ends up walking away. Again, is it a high risk? No, it's not a high risk, but that exists. It's like saying there's a risk that Lamar Jackson suffers a career-altering injury. It's not a high risk, but it's there. There is an amount of risk that's involved with all of these things. I maintain that I think something will happen. And I maintain that I was told a little while back that there was more reason for optimism than there had been within their conversations. And that maybe the start of this season was providing something like a deadline. Because it's easy to keep saying, well, there's no deadline involved with any of this, except for the deadline where $23 million. You don't do a deal before the season begins, and you say we're not going to talk during the season. You can't change that. That's what you're playing for this year. Significantly less than market value. So maybe that provides an amount of pressure on Jackson's side to get a deal done. And maybe that combined with the fact that the first deal that was signed post Deshaun Watson wasn't a fully guaranteed deal, created more of an atmosphere for them to say, all right, it's not that big of a deal if we get it all fully guaranteed or not. And as a lot of people have pointed out, the likelihood of a quarterback being cut is so slim because the way these contracts are constructed that it's almost esoteric to call it fully guaranteed when the reality is you're getting all your guarantees. You're getting all your money if you're a quarterback in the NFL. We'll see. But Jason Cole says that the deal that Lamar's camp is looking for is the Deshaun Watson deal plus something, which historically is the way the quarterback market has worked. Someone gets their deal, the next guy, whoever it is, whether the next guy is actually better than the last guy or not, someone gets their deal, the next guy gets more. That's the way the quarterback market has evolved over the years. Kyler Murray kind of broke that. He got less. Got a lot, but it was less. Lamar Jackson, according to Jason Cole, looking for more. Just worth filing away. I won't take a lot of time on this, but I saw this interview floating around. I've met Scott Abraham before. I don't know him well. He's a reporter for one of the TV stations in D.C., and I think he used to work out on the Eastern Shore. And Scott Abraham got to sit down with Carson Wentz as part of Commanders training camp. And Warren Sharp, our friend, who was just on the show, pulled, I don't think this is the entirety of the video, I think he just pulled a couple of particularly pressing questions that Scott Abraham asked Carson Wentz, the Commanders quarterback. I had Griffin pull up the, why don't we take a listen to it?
There's been kind of a narrative out there here in training camp that you've been a little inaccurate on your throws. Consistently inconsistent has been a kind of a terminology. How would you assess your performance in training camp, and is that characterization fair?
Yeah, I mean, for one, it's camp. I think I didn't know that, so thank you.
Yep.
But
because I know you told me you don't read that stuff.
At the same time, I'm my biggest critic, so I come back after practice and I'm kicking myself over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plays.
Real talk here, Carson. It's been well documented. Philly didn't want you. Indy didn't want you. Do you think this is your last chance to prove that you can be a starting quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, I don't really think about all that stuff. For me, I'm playing the game that I love, and I have the most confidence of anybody in myself to deliver, to play at a high level, to be a part of something special here with this team. And so I don't put all that pressure on myself. I don't put, people can feel that way, people can say what they want, and I have no issue with that. That is what it is. But for me, I don't think in those terms.
All right. So, 2, real questions. You've been described as not having a great camp. Do you think that's fair? And then followed up by, dude, you're a former high draft pick that's now bounced around to a few teams. Were they worded in a little bit of a clunky way? Maybe, but, I think we've all worded questions in clunky ways. And sometimes, because you understand the gravity of the question, you're trying to take the edge off of it. And sometimes you might just be better off asking it in a very direct way. But nothing in there. And by the way, Carson Wentz, I thought, handled those questions well. To be fair, I don't think anyone outside of the people that are trying to sell it within Washington genuinely believe that Carson Wentz is an answer at quarterback and is going to save that franchise or be there for a long time or anything along those lines. But, reasonably well handled on his part. He's like, look, man, I'm not all that worked up about it. I'm worried about, getting ready for a season. Fair. And I would have never known about any of this. Even Warren Sharp's tweet, I would have never seen any of it had it not been for the team president of the Washington Commanders, Jason Wright, tweeting it with this comment today. Thankfully, Carson demonstrated grace and class in response to this pompous, unprofessional mess. I recognize you have made a living on childlike provocation, but it needs to be called out. Don't expect special access, and good luck building rapport with the guys, Scott, 7 News, I guess that's his Twitter handle, Scott Abraham. Holy F! For of all franchises to be sensitive about something, the Washington Commanders, who have gotten literally nothing right. Nothing. I guess they drafted Terry McLaurin. All right, let me take that back. That's the one thing. They've done one thing right in 15 years.
Hiring Ron Rivera, maybe.
Has he done anything?
No. Nice guy.
I mean, seems like a great guy. I mean, he seems like the type of guy that you feel bad for. That's who's there. For them? Like, how tone deaf are you to who you are? This is inherently one of the issues that exists. We have, and part of the problem is that because so much of media has moved internal. It's one of the things I say. The Ravens don't like it that I don't come out as much anymore. I barely come out at all. And one of the things I said is, guys, you don't want me there. And I know that because you make me jump through hoops in order to be there. You do it because you have to. Because the rules in the NFL are you have to allow media to be here for a certain time. But these teams would all be just happy to have their own internal media. and tell the stories the way they want them told. Spin things the way they want them spun. And I get it. Like, that's sort of the way the world works now. The nature of social media, the amount of videos you can do, the amount of stories you can write, the amount of content that you can deliver internally, you just don't feel the same need for external media. I actually understand it. Like, I'm in on it. I get it. External media is a problem for you guys because they might say something you don't like or ask kind of a tough question. The most relevant thing about Carson Wentz in Washington by far is, dude, you haven't worked in the last 2 places you've been. How's it going to be different here? The single most relevant question by far related to Carson Wentz. Why in the world would it be any different here, a place where no one's been able to make it work? 6,000 quarterbacks have been through. None of them. Not the ones we drafted, not the ones we traded for, not the ones we signed, not the ones no one. Why would it be different for the guy that's failed in his last 2 spots? And failed, it's not like Carson Wentz is, Sam Darnold. He's better than that. I'm not trying to say Carson Wentz is garbage. He's definitely not garbage, but he's a mid quarterback. And 2 teams have decided they would be better off without him. Sometimes the teams get that wrong, right? Miami was wrong about Ryan Tannehill, you could say. I don't think that makes Ryan Tannehill a great quarterback, but Miami was not better immediately in getting rid of Ryan Tannehill. Tennessee was when they got him. It's not impossible for this to occur. But what else would you possibly ask Carson Wentz? I used to do radio in D.C. Like, if I was sitting on 106.7 The Fan and Bill Rowland walked in and was like, hey, Carson Wentz is about to call in. The hell else am I supposed to ask him about? How excited you are to be with the worst franchise in football? It's generous that you wouldn't ask that question. God! You know how tough it was? Like, when we would have an Orioles minor leaguer on in, 2018 to be like, boy,
you excited?
It's got to feel I would have to come up with ways to ask them other questions. So, there might be a real opportunity here. Like, I would literally talk about how there was nothing at the major league level. In order to ask a question, I'd be like, so it seems like there's got to be a real opportunity for you here, huh? Because there's nothing going on here. There's no reason for excitement. But literally, they're trying this week. Dan Snyder did something with the gaming commission in the state of Maryland where he had to go on and, because he's trying to get a sports book at the stadium. So he had to testify in the gaming commission. He's like, well, it's all fixed now because we finally found a quarterback. So that's what they want projected. They want it projected like Carson Wentz is the answer. Like, we finally got it all figured out because we've got Carson Wentz. I don't know enough about maybe Scott Abraham's a dick. Like, maybe he's just an awful person and a bad, maybe he's a real problem starter. I've had things said about me by a lot of people. I mean, I had someone in town in a media relations role attempt to get me fired from this job and said I was an S-stirrer. Called Stan the Fan Charles in an attempt to get me fired because I was an S-stirrer. Over the most innocuous thing that anybody could ever possibly attempt to write about. I mean, utterly innocuous. That's how bad people can be at their jobs. But I get it. It's part of the reason why I don't like going anymore. I just you guys don't want me there. I can talk about it, I don't need to be there any longer. It's a shame because I'd like to keep building those relationships, and being there is a great way to build better relationships with players. But you guys don't want me there. You don't want me to do my job. You want me to be happy to be there and thankful that I'm being allowed access. And I get it. You don't have to necessarily provide it. So you expect that I should be so thankful for the access that I just smile and say thank you. But that's not the way this job works. There is a job to be done, and I'm happy to help share good stories. I loved having Austin Hayes on this week, by the way. I appreciated the Orioles coordinating that. Because I love that Austin Hayes is launching a scholarship that benefit Maryland, a Maryland student. That's a wonderful thing. And still, go to his Instagram. Click the link. I'm so happy that Austin Hayes is doing that. So I wanted to talk about it. But, I also want to talk about the fact that he's not under contract long-term, and clearly he wants to be. I didn't even ask, and he brought it up. It's clearly a thing for him. It was like once upon a time, Drew and I had Ed Reed on one morning, and he was like calling in to promote an event that he was doing. And like, we just asked him how he was doing. And I swear to God, God, I wish I could find this interview again. It's one of the most amazing things that's ever happened. And in this era, like if that interview occurred today, it would be monstrous. Ed Reed calls in. It was like hosting a football camp. Like, Ed, how you doing this morning? I swear to God, I'd be doing better if I had a contract.
That's amazing.
Oh. Well, good morning, Ed. So how about that football camp coming up? Yeah, we're really excited about it. And also my contract. Like, I swear to God, he brought it up 7 times during the course of an interview without Drew asking or me asking. It wasn't even on the list. We didn't even realize that he was having a problem with the contract. It wasn't a big story then. I try to remember what year this would have been.
The only reason he put the football camp on was so that he could get on.
Do interviews to talk about. It was like 9 or 10. I don't know, 09 or 2010, somewhere in that range. I don't remember exactly when it was. But my God, it was insane. Austin Hayes didn't do that. He did it in a really nice. He was like, I would really like to be here to see this through. And I think he's touching on some of the stuff we talked about with Adam Pohl yesterday. That externally, you could see why maybe Mike Elias might say, hey, I might not sign those guys because I might like the guys that are coming even better than that. And Austin Hayes might be doing that math in his head and saying, hey, look, I've been here for a while. I want to stick around. I just watched them trade Trey Mancini, so they can trade Trey Mancini. They can trade anybody. So I just wanted to be publicly known. I want to be here. That's relevant. And Orioles fans can have their own opinions. Someone's opinion might be, look, Austin Hayes is too hit or miss for me to commit a lot of money to him. When he's good, he's really good, but then he goes through stretches where, he's a guy. So the Orioles fans can have their own opinions about it, but I'm glad that Austin Hayes was willing to talk about it. That's the way this works. That's the way we do all of these things. So to me, that's embarrassing from Jason Wright. I mean, it's not going to register as one of the most embarrassing things the Commanders have done because, Jesus Christ, imagine what you'd have to do to register as one of the more embarrassing things the Commanders have done. And perhaps there's more than what we saw there. Perhaps there's a bigger problem with this particular reporter, and maybe the guy really is a problem. I don't know. I don't know him well enough, and I'm not in D.C. How would I know? I think I've come across him a couple times. I remember I bumped into him at the tennis event last year. It was pleasant enough, I guess. I don't know. I mean, we barely talked. But it's so weird. It's so over the top. It's so absurd that when you're the president of the Washington Commanders, you wouldn't maybe take a step back and say, hey, maybe threatening a reporter's access to the team, not the best look for us. Maybe we let cooler heads prevail here. Maybe we acknowledge, hey, this is kind of tough. Mike Pettin, when he took the Browns job, came on with me. And I was like, what makes you believe you can do this when nobody else could? And he got mad about it. Like, he couldn't believe I would ask that question. You had an NFL head coach on, and you had the audacity to ask that question. If you don't want to answer it, we don't have to do this. I'm glad you came on. We like Mike Pettin. He was a good guy. We got to know him here a little bit. It's fine. But if you don't want to do it, we won't do it. Jim Schwartz and I had a great relationship, but he would get pissy at me. I'd bring him on, and we'd have fun, and then he'd get mad at me. I'm an NFL head coach. You need to be more respectful. Bro, I'm going to ask you questions. Like, that's the way it's going to work. And if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. And the answer is, unfortunately, they've just stopped doing them, right? Like, John Harbaugh would get mad about the most innocuous things all the time. He just stopped doing them. Like, you don't hear John Harbaugh call into radio stations around town. You don't hear him do anything other than the podium. That's what he does. Like, that's it. That's the list of them. That's fine. Which is a shame because I did a couple. He came on my show a couple of times and it was great. We had great outside of the season. John was actually a very engaging interview during the season, not a good one, but outside of the season because he didn't have an opponent to prepare for and he wasn't, getting defensive and thinking about what information he was giving. He was a very good interview. Like He and I went back and forth for like 10 minutes once, going into, it was either 11 or 12, about whether or not Ray Lewis could still be a 3-down linebacker in the NFL. Because he just kept dodging the question. He kept saying nice things about Ray, but not directly saying, yes, we still think he's a 3-down linebacker. And so I really I just said, John, I think you're dancing. Like, I think you're dancing. And, like, outside of the season, he was willing to have fun with that. Well, better me than you. You're a terrible dancer. Like, we could have a back and forth in those circumstances. And it made for good content. People really enjoyed, they like hearing that. I know that the teams have all convinced themselves that they just want to hear, everybody just wants to hear positive things. And if you listen to most of our interviews, they're overwhelmingly positive. Overwhelmingly. Because this is sports that we're talking about. Not life and death. But every now and then, there's a question that should be asked. It should be asked. Carson Wentz, the hell happened the last couple of places? Why are you here? It's not because you were offered $1 billion. You're here because nobody else wanted you. Let's talk about that. And he can answer it however he wants to answer it. And credit to Carson Wentz. He answered it well. There's nothing wrong with that question at all. All right, we're going to run out of time to put our swagger. You have a lineup?
Do I have a lineup?
Did you put one? Yeah.
I don't have one. I can think
Why
of
don't
one.
you post one on Twitter? Why don't we do that later after the show? Post a lineup on
I'm thinking
Twitter.
I'm going player strikeouts, like pitcher strikeouts.
Pitcher strikeouts.
Yeah, I feel like that's the way to go. Couple good ones tonight.
What kind
Scherzer, Rodon pitching tonight.
What kind of a smoothie do you want?
The green one, the green giant, right? Yeah.
Is that what it's called? I don't know.
Yeah.
You're telling me.
Yes.
All right, Griffin, one love.
And then Cal Quantrill of Cleveland. He's been pitching very well lately. I'm not sure what his recent strikeouts look like, but he's going against the Blue Jays, and I mean, the Blue Jays are a little cold. They have 2 days off now, I think. I don't think they played yesterday.
Okay. I don't know. How would I know?
So no, they didn't play. So they've had 2 days off. Kind of an awkward. Maybe that's what they need since they lost 2 to the O's. But I like Cal Quantrill. Scherzer's pitching tonight. I said that. Who else? I saw somebody else that I liked in their strikeouts. Luis Garcia is a good one.
All right, well,
maybe Corey Kluber.
Put together. Maybe put like a screen cap up or something like that,
All right.
and say, "Hey, it's Griffin. I'm playing with Swagger tonight. Tag them in, and here's the lineup I'm going with. Don't forget." I'll talk you through it when you put it up. The idea is, I'm gonna play Swagger tonight too. I just haven't had a chance to put a lineup together, and we ran out of time. Because I started bitching about things. It's on me. I'm sorry. I love Swagger, though, and I'm going to play Swagger tonight because I missed playing it last night. So what you need to do is go to playwithswagger.com/pressbox. And if you do that, you'll immediately get you went there and you just got $10 free, correct?
Correct, yeah.
You just went.
Pretty cool.
$10 free. It's yours. Did you put any money in or did you just take the $10?
Not yet. I just took the 10 so far.
I don't know if you had to do it at the same time.
Yeah,
I don't know how that works. I think
I'm still
I think
a new
you can
user.
still. Yeah, I still think you get your money matched. So they'll give you the $10 free and match you up to $100. So as I keep saying, you could create a scenario where you never use your own money. You could get up to $110 free from Swagger. Put in $100, they'll match it, plus you get your $10 free. Use that $110, go make more money, and then you'll have never used your money. It's incredible. It's free money they're giving you to play with Swagger. Playwithswagger.com. Playwithswagger.com/pressbox. And it is set up not for the marks. This is not one of those daily, weekly fantasy contests where the pros are going to win and you don't have a chance. This is for you to feel like you're betting, despite the fact that you still can't bet on your phone or computer here in the state of Maryland, by playing player props and parlays. So you pick 4, 5, however many. You can go up to like 10, right?
Yeah, you can go up to 10.
And you don't have to hit them all, is the point. This is not unlike a parlay where if you miss one leg of your parlay, you miss out. They stagger it. Swagger stagger. They stagger it so that if you get a certain number of points, you say win your money back. If you get a certain number of points beyond that, you could win some money, but not the full amount of money you could win. If you hit everything, you're going to get all the money. It's a really cool concept. It's going to be we're going to do a big push in football season. I'm really excited for football with Swagger, but I've been trying to play with baseball, so I'm going to let Griffin put together a ticket, and I might ride with him. We'll see. I might ride with him. We'll do that on Twitter a little bit later. Play with Swagger. All right. Tidbit. Tidbit brought to you by the print issue of Pressbox. Final weekend.
Wednesday will be the date for the new one. So this is the final 5 days for you to get to your neighborhood Royal Farms and to the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box and pick up the Salute to Coaches issue of Press Box with John Harbaugh. We were just talking about him. He's on the cover. We celebrate 15 years of John Harbaugh as a head coach in the NFL. A lot of other area coaches recognized inside. It's the athletes whose lives they've impacted the most telling their stories. Great issue, very special issue. Final day is for you to get it. Next Wednesday, the new print issue hits. It's our football preview with Mark Andrews on the cover. So go get that this weekend. What you got?
All right, Adley Rutschman. I mean, he is everything.
I'm now getting greedy, right?
Yeah, right,
like
yeah.
I'm not kidding about this. And now because he is the team's best player, like now I need him to come up with big hits and big moments. Like now, and he's had a few. I'm not trying to say he hasn't had any, but now like it's my expectation for him.
Right.
Now I'm actually he's actually kind of letting me down a little bit.
Well, he's got
like
plenty
watching
of
the
time.
game last night.
He'll be
I'm
here
like,
for a while. He's got plenty of time to win us back, I guess.
Yeah, trust me. I'm still very much on board.
But yes, I mean, literally every morning, there's just some stat head Twitter account. They're posting a new Adley stat. Yesterday, Sarah Langs had one. It was about weighted runs created plus since June 15th, and he's like 7th behind.
I included that in my column this week.
All right, yeah. So I won't go over that one. But today's came from Dave Sherman, and I'll read it off to you. He is okay. So since July 1st, Adley has a 20.5% walk rate to a 15.2% strikeout rate. That's a 5.3 walk to strikeout difference, and that's the second best in baseball since July 1st. Behind only Juan Soto, who is just an unreal 13.7 difference right there. So, I mean, Adley, just the one I saw today. So that got me thinking about walk rates. Because same deal, you can go to Baseball So Fun every single day. Every single percentile just moves up pretty much a point every single day, every single game that he plays. And so Adley has finally moved into the 96th percentile in walk rate. So, Glenn, I want to know if you can name all the guys that he's going to catch this season to get to the 100th.
I'm assuming Soto.
Yes, Soto is number 1 at 100%.
That's unbelievable.
100% walk percentile. Excuse me. There is 9 guys ahead of him.
Jesus Christ.
A couple surprising names. Actually,
Judge.
Judge is actually not ahead of him. Judge
Really?
is only in the 94th percentile. In walk
Bum.
rate.
He sucks. They should probably walk him more often.
They probably should.
Here's
Which is very, I know.
Here's a
it's very,
suggestion. Walk him more frequently.
There is a Yankee. I don't think you'll get him. Yankee in the 98th percentile. That's not Aaron Judge.
It's not Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
another
Stanton.
outfielder. Yeah, not Stanton.
Another outfielder?
Yeah.
Another outfielder?
Yeah. Shares a first name with their manager.
Oh, Hicks?
Yeah, Aaron Hicks.
Really?
Yeah, he gets walked enough that
That's
he is
very
top
weird.
7 in the league in walk rate.
Okay, I mean, I'm not saying he's not a good player. He's a good player.
Along with another New York bat.
Alonso?
No, not Alonso. Where is he? He's not up there, but one they just traded for.
Oh, Christ. Damn it.
Big guy.
Vogelback?
Yeah, Vogelback. Also 98th percentile.
That's not who I was thinking of. I was thinking of the other guy. Who's the other guy they traded for?
Not Naquin. You're not thinking.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of that they traded for. But it didn't make a sense. That's why I was confused by it.
Okay. Guy in the MVP race. I mean, no one's
Vogelback coming up to milkshake, by the way.
Yeah, that was
chef's kiss.
He's been everything for them. He's been it's fitting right
Jordan Alvarez.
There you go. Jordan Alvarez, 97th percentile.
How
in
about
walk rates?
How about
infielder for the Twins?
Polanco?
Yep, Jorge Polanco,
Okay.
top 5 in walk rate this
was
season.
A pure guess. I have no idea why he would be that high in walk rate, but
Good
sure.
pull. Couple guys in Seattle this season.
Winker?
Yep, Winker, top 4, and then his teammate right ahead of him. Long-time vet, been around for a while now. Switch hitter.
I was gonna say Suarez, but
not Suarez. First baseman.
Oh my God. Oh my
You
God.
know who it is. Yeah,
I do know who it is. Why in the hell am I not? Oh my God.
Holy crap.
Royals, long time. Cleveland.
What?
I'm trying to think of. I don't know how to get you to guess his name.
I
know you know who it is.
I know exactly who it is. It's oh my god.
I'm trying to think.
Oh
I'm trying to think of what's a hint I could give. I'm trying to think here. Was he ever almost an Oriole? No.
Santana.
Yep.
Carlos Santana. Yes,
Santana.
Carlos Santana.
Number 3
Jesus.
and number 2 in the league behind Soto. Also, he's very surprising this one because he's had a very down year for the NL West leaders.
NL West leaders. He's had a down year.
Yeah,
so
but he's still getting walked.
Muncy?
Max Muncy.
Yeah.
In the 100th percentile, tied with Juan Soto in walk rate.
Okay.
And then Adley is tied with Yandy Diaz, Jimon Choi, and Joey Gallo.
Okay.
In that 96th percentile. And he's going to catch all those guys, so pretty cool.
Maybe didn't need to walk Joey Gallo as many times as the pitchers had. Maybe he could have just gone ahead and. Although I
like how he's in the first percentile.
He hasn't been.
Rate,
yeah, but he hasn't been quite as bad in
bad
LA, has he? Hasn't he been like a little bit better?
Yeah, that's the thing. LA hasn't lost since Gallo got there. And I think the Yankees are like 1-7.
That is wild.
Since the trade.
That's wild. All right, very good.
Yep.
That's a tidbit. Tubular brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Of course, we keep telling you the place to be for football season, and keep thinking about your fantasy football drafts because that first weekend of college football season, that's Saturday. It's funny. My guy Doug Beiser from Live Casino just messaged me today. He's like, dude, I feel like we should start talking about that first weekend of college football. I'm like, Doug, I love you, but you have clearly not been paying attention. Like, we talk about it constantly. Fantasy football draft in the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. That first Saturday of college football season, loaded. Week 1 of college football season. Not week 0, week 1. Labor Day weekend, which is when you should be doing your draft anyway. Perfection. Spend the day betting on all these great games. Georgia, Oregon. Ohio State, Notre Dame. You heard of them? Florida, Utah. Local teams in action, too. Great day. Reserve your fantasy draft in the FanDuel Sportsbook, and they'll give you some deals, throw in some freebies, things like that. You just got to email events@sportssocialmd.com, events@sportssocialmd.com, and coordinate it. All right, here's what's coming up. Orioles Rays all weekend. As we mentioned tonight, Austin Voth and Corey Kluber, the pitching matchup, 7 o'clock on Masson. Tomorrow and Sunday, they're on Masson 2. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, Shane McClanahan. Also, if you live in the rest of the country, you can watch it on MLB Network tomorrow. And then Sunday at 1:30, we know Drew Rasmussen is on the mound. For some reason, the Orioles have not announced.
Probably Lyles.
Lyles and Watkins is what we think is going to be the way the weekend will go. Wait, which order is that?
Should be Watkins tomorrow.
Tomorrow and Lyles on Sunday. But just for whatever reason, they have not made that official. Don't know. Athletes Unlimited Lacrosse final weekend out at USA Lacrosse in Sparks. Also still on TV on ESPNU tomorrow, and then on ESPN Plus on Sunday. And honestly, it's kind of a lame weekend otherwise. Like, this is the calm before the storm of football coming back, so just not a lot as far as significance. There's a UFC fight night on ESPN.
I'll be watching.
Make
sure you cash your Chito Vera.
That's right. You're all over that. Teofimo Lopez fights tomorrow night on ESPN as well, so there's UFC right into boxing. So that is kind of a fun fight night, I guess, if you're looking for things to bet on. Teofimo Lopez is a popular fighter, so, there's that. But that's all on ESPN tomorrow. And it's cool that's on free TV, so you got that going for us. Non-sports?
Semi-big weekend for streaming. Couple things. On Netflix, Jamie Foxx movie called Day Shift.
Oh, yeah, you were talking about that.
Yeah. So he's a vampire hunter, apparently. Dave Franco's in it, so Snoop Dogg. So it looks like, it'll be interesting, at least.
Okay.
Might have to. I think I'll check it out. And then Hulu. This one caught my eye. Called This Fool, a new series that is premiering today. All the episodes are out. Because Michael Imperioli is in it from Sopranos. I love Sopranos. And so he was Christopher in Sopranos, and he was the first little clip. I don't think he has a big role. He can't because he wasn't in the trailer that much. But on the quick 15-second trailer I saw on Twitter once, the first clip I saw was Michael Imperioli, and I was like, "Whoa! Oh my god!"
Okay.
So I'm kind of excited for it. I'm not sure how it's going to be, but it looks like it's so Michael Imperioli helps rehabilitate ex-gang members. It's supposed to be a comedy. Looks kind of interesting. The main character's brother gets out of prison and then moves in with him and his girlfriend. I don't know. So we'll see what happens. Okay. I saw Fred Armisen. He's in the trailer as well, so he might have a role. And then A League of Their Own is doing a series on Amazon Prime.
Yes. This has been talked about for a couple years now.
Yeah. Nick Offerman, I think he's playing...
Nick Offerman.
Offerman.
No, it's not. It's Nick Offerman.
You know who I'm talking about.
I do, but it's not hard.
The O, you see the O is capitalized, so I always like to. I think of that as a long O.
Just stop. This is a bad bit.
No, it's not.
God. No, it's not hard to get somebody's name right.
But that
if you don't know, it's okay. You just got it wrong, and you say, "Hey, sorry, I screwed up." Offerman. It's not hard.
Nick,
you're trying to give somebody else a different name because you can't just say.
You know who I'm
this
talking
is a very
about.
millennial.
You know who I'm talking
but this
about.
is so millennial, and I don't even know if you're a millennial. You might be a post-millennial.
I'm technically Gen Z.
Yeah, like this is such a. I didn't get it wrong. It's you're wrong for calling me wrong. No, just I got it wrong. It's okay. You can get things. I get things wrong all the time.
Yeah, but the point got across.
Shut up.
League of Their Own doing a series on Amazon Prime, and then another new dating show is
Nick
on
Offerman
Amazon.
Playing Tom Hanks' character?
I believe so. Yeah, that's
right,
that's what it looked like.
All right, damn it, now I'm back on.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out. That'll be interesting.
Nick Offerman, for those that don't know, is of course Ron Swanson.
Great actor.
One of my favorite guests I've ever had on a show.
You had him on here?
He played the lyric one year. Dude, we had a hell of a run because we had Chris Pratt on too.
I remember you had Brian
predates.
Baumgartner like when I was like.
Well, yeah, but this predates Glenn Clark Radio. This is
okay.
back when I was on the station that doesn't exist anymore. Nick Offerman was coming to town, and I wanted to do something fun with him. I was like, what's something really cool I could do? And the idea that I had was, and so I pulled him up. I'm like, Nick, I don't know if you're going to go with this or not, but I was wondering if we put 90 seconds on the clock, could you just spend 90 seconds listing names of meats? And he just gave that chuckle that he does so well. And he was like, yeah, I'll do that. And he did it, and it was as wonderful as I thought it would be. Like, I just sat there and listened to him list names of meats, and I was like, this is what I think radio is supposed to be. This is what I think you're supposed to get out of radio. He was wonderful. His show was amazing. Oh, God. Yeah, his wife's band opened for him. Wow. It was a great night. It was just a wonderful, wonderful night.
Pretty cool. All right, and so this is the last one called Cosmic Love, new dating show on Amazon Prime, and they're trying to match people up based on their like astrology signs.
Yeah, I'm out.
And so this is a line from the trailer in the show, and the girl I think was like talking to the guy. We based on our signs, we are sexually compatible, and the guy was like, "Oh, thank the stars."
Very bad. All right, GlennClarkRadio.com. We went long, but we didn't go as long as we did yesterday, so we got that going for us. Thanks today to Cordell Woodland. Thanks also to Jeff Chadiha. We'll get it up in the greatest hits section of the tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. The Bat Around tomorrow morning with Paul and Zach, 10 to noon. We'll be back on Monday. Jamie Kaiser, we missed on him this week because he was out playing in a tournament. Maryland basketball commit. He's going to join us on Monday and stuff and things on Monday's show. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, Costas Inn, Grade 8's Memorabilia, the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel. Visit Howard County, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Thanks to Ryan at RexBex Ryan. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great weekend. Go Birds. Duke sucks. Ohio State sucks too.